Chapter 241, Planning an Invasion. Logan and Victor burst into laughter, tears streaming down their faces as they watched Cyclops' bewildered expression. Although they couldn't see his eyes, his confusion was evident. Back in the day, they were forced to consume Duke's experimental product, which often led to bouts of vomiting. The meat from Duke's skeleton reptile was eventually deemed partially edible. Only the tail and some internal organs were safe to eat. The rest was inedible. Oh, and the reptile's whip couldn't be eaten directly, but when brewed into medicinal wine, it was incredibly potent. It could turn an 80-year-old man into a 20-year-old in an instant. However, after a night of such vigor, the elderly man would likely end up in the hospital morgue. While his virility might be restored, the rest of his body couldn't handle the strain, especially his spine. For younger people, this concoction was a treasure. A mere 10-milliliter dose had effects similar to Sidorphine. Logan and Victor often found themselves as Duke's guinea pigs for his culinary experiments. Duke euphemistically called them testers, but in reality, they were test subjects. Every dish Duke prepared looked and smelled delicious, but the aftermath was often less pleasant. Stomach cramps were a common side effect. The skeleton reptile was a prime example. As individuals with self-healing abilities, Logan and Victor weren't afraid of viruses, but ordinary people should never consider turning novel creatures into food. The skin and meat of the skeleton reptile contained a mild toxin that caused severe diarrhea. While ordinary people would need a week to recover, Logan and Victor only twitched for a few seconds. The toxin was traced back to the liver, which had very strong stomach acid. The only usable parts were the kidneys and the heart. Interestingly, the skeleton reptile had an unusually large waist, possibly due to adrenaline secretion, ensuring strong physical performance. The tail, however, was toxin-free and quite tasty. "What's wrong?" Cyclops asked, still curious. Bruce Banner, who had already retched and wiped his mouth, advised, "I suggest you don't find out. Really, it's for your own good." He continued eating the kidney. Cyclops' curiosity was piqued. "It's nothing. It's just ugly," Logan said, patting Cyclops on the shoulder. "Like a demon from hell," Victor added with a fierce smile, showing his canine teeth. "Oh." Cyclops' interest only grew. What did this skeleton reptile look like? He was dying to know. In reality, the skeleton reptile wasn't that bad looking. Apart from its exoskeleton-like bloody mouth and large head, it was relatively normal. The main issue was its slimy, sticky skin, which was more disgusting than the legendary anglerfish's ugly skin. And it was huge. Bruce Banner retched because he subconsciously associated the kidneys he was eating with the skeleton reptile soul bodies that had chased Bronsky earlier. The thought made him nauseous. After all, he had seen the soul with the first kick and now was eating the kidney. The second kick was too exciting. Until the end of the barbecue, Cyclops didn't reveal why he had turned around with his head full of thoughts and returned to Academy X. When parting, Ruiwan invited a fight, mentioning that Hank had always wanted to challenge the Hulk. Tsk, that's a level of recklessness that could be fatal. Hank's strength is definitely no match for the Hulk. Even 10 Hanks wouldn't be enough. Fortunately, Bruce Banner declined. He is currently focused on cultivating soul power, fearing that he might be replaced by his alter ego. In Reunion 4, Banner accepted the existence of the Hulk, and the two became one, meaning that the two souls and two personalities merged into one. However, Hulk is different from ordinary multiple personalities. He didn't specialize in cultivating his spirit and soul. Even as a merged entity, his soul was not strong enough, and Guyi defeated him in one chapter. Of course, the main reason is that Guyi is exception, ally powerful. Ordinary mages couldn't achieve such a feat. Although Banner has started to cultivate his spirit, he still has a long way to go. Meanwhile, in West Africa, on a vast yellow sand road, a Mark-armed oil tank truck reminiscent of Mad Max suddenly transformed. Was it the escaped Megatron? The rusty mecha and the face eroded by wind and sand gave it a Borderland vibe. The former commander of the Decepticons, now so injured, so weak. It's sad to see tsk. In the desolate Decepticon camp, an unexpected guest appeared. He wore a golden helmet with devilish curved horns, held a golden scepter, and was dressed in dark green and gold intertwined clothes with a green cloak. "Roar, who are you?" Megatron was furious and shocked. His territory had been discovered? Allow me to introduce myself, my lord. Loki Odinson, Prince of Asgard, son of Odin, father of the gods. First meeting, commander of the Decepticons. Megatron. Mr. The official god of mischief, Loki, had arrived. The word commander was dripping with sarcasm, while sir was a direct insult. Ha! Asgard! Heh, are you here to target me? Megatron's anger flared, and he raised his hand to shoot. It should be considered a cannon. To him, it was a gun, but at that size, it was a cannon to a human. The explosion undoubtedly penetrated Loki's body, blasting a large crater in the ground behind him. You don't really think I would come to see you in person, do you? The desolate commander of Megatron, you now, are not worthy of my prince's condescension to come here in person. You're courting death. Megatron was enraged. Well, I don't have time to waste with you. Seriously, I'm planning an invasion. How about a cooperation? Are you in or not? End of this chapter. Chapter 242, Because You Can't Win. Karazhan. Megatron fell silent, lowering his head for a moment. It wasn't that he was admitting defeat. He simply looked down because Loki was too short. Prince of Asgard? I've heard of you. Why should I cooperate with you? Megatron questioned. Don't you want revenge? I know very well that Duke beat you badly. You were the only one left when all your troops were gone. If it were me, I couldn't bear it. Loki's goal was to confuse, but unfortunately, this time his opponent was a robot. The heart of a robot shouldn't be regarded as a heart in the traditional sense, right? Before Loki could finish speaking, he was interrupted. Not interested, Megatron snapped. Asgard is a realm of gods. Do you know what kind of god I am? Loki asked. I don't know, Megatron replied. God of lies, so don't lie to me. I can tell, Loki sneered. If you don't want revenge, why would you continue to stay on Earth? You say you are the god of lies. How can I believe you? Megatron lowered his body, staring coldly at Loki's illusion with his large head. Do you need to trust me? Loki also sneered. Yes, I don't need to trust you. Similarly, I don't need to trust you, Megatron laughed. They don't trust each other. It's really an interesting cooperation. But I want to know, why are you doing this? Duke is not someone to be trifled with. I want to take over the Earth, and I want to prove to my father that I am the one who can take that seat, Loki said ferociously. Looks like another power struggle. Megatron laughed. Why don't you? Loki replied. Yes, me too, Megatron admitted. The Decepticons and the Autobots had been fighting each other for thousands of years. It was no longer a simple struggle for power, but a deep-seated hatred, each wanting to eliminate the other. Then here comes the question. How do we cooperate? To put it bluntly, Duke is very powerful and cannot be eliminated by ordinary conspiracy. I am very curious about your guts. There should be no one who dares to face him head-on, but you jumped out at this moment? Even I am waiting for the best time. Megatron sneered. You don't need to worry about this. I will open a wormhole and attract the strongest fleet in the universe. Behind me stands the most powerful destroyer of the universe. Duke is definitely not my opponent. It is you, the great tyrant commander of the Decepticons. How much power do you have beside you? Loki's phantom twirled around, taunting. Megatron snorted coldly. My people are all lurking. As long as I give the order, they will appear. You will never know how many Decepticons are hiding on Earth. That's good. My strategy is to launch an invasion in New York and try to settle those self-righteous superheroes in one fell swoop. And you need to threaten to attack the X-Men Academy. How about it? Loki proposed. Why the X-Men Academy? Megatron asked. Because you can't win Karazhan, Loki replied. Megatron growled. What's the difference? Once the X-Men Academy is attacked, Karazhan will come to support immediately. We are only discussing preliminary cooperation now. The specific actions will have to wait until I make complete preparations. How about it? Do you agree to the cooperation? Loki asked. Megatron was silent for a moment before shouting loudly, Agreed. Very good. I hope we have a happy cooperation. That's it for now. I will come to you to discuss a specific action plan after I have prepared everything. As he spoke, Loki's phantom flickered and disappeared. Megatron remained silent until Soundwave approached. Soundwave reporting, Master Megatron, Soundwave said. Not far away, a laser beak flew down and landed slowly on Soundwave's arm. Laserbeak was also a member of the Hermit Warriors, but he did not possess the highest level of transformation like Alice, who could become a 100% perfect human being. Of course, he could turn into any metallic object. "What's the news, little assassin?" Megatron's voice crackled through the radio. "For now, there's no significant update," Shang Bowen replied in a low tone. "Master Megatron, the one who just left, was some so-called prince from Asgard who wants to cooperate with us," Megatron interrupted. "Is he trustworthy?" Shang Bowen asked. Megatron paused, then shook his head. "The cooperation seems reliable, but his motives, forget it. Regardless of his intentions, our plans will change. Be ready to destroy Earth completely at any moment." "Retreat?" Soundwave was taken aback. "I never imagined Earth was actually the lower realm of Asgard. This might have caught the attention of the so-called father of the gods, Odin. But before we leave, I want one last battle." Megatron clenched his fists, his resolve unwavering. He was not one to flee from a fight. "Understood, Master Megatron," Soundwave nodded. "One more thing. Ensure the humans complete their tasks and then eliminate them all. Leave no one alive." Megatron's voice was cold as he crushed a small, mass-produced robot in his hand. "Decepticons don't need so many partners." "Understood, Laserbeak. Ensure the mission is completed, and then kill them all," Soundwave commanded. As ordered, Laserbeak flapped its wings and flew away. Those people at NASA were in for a grim fate. Partners? Megatron scoffed at the idea. Since Starscream's betrayal, he no longer saw the need to cooperate with Earthlings. Did that fool, Starscream, think he hadn't noticed? He had, but he didn't mind. Starscream had no idea what the real plan was. To confuse the enemy, it was sometimes necessary to feign ignorance. When Starscream obtained the Matrix, which later turned out to be fake, it seemed the refuge plan had failed. Only then did he reveal the target mission's location. Cooperation with others? Megatron didn't believe in it, just as he hadn't trusted Hydra initially. He wouldn't trust Loki of Asgard either. Although he didn't know the specifics, Starscream's miserable demise likely involved Hydra. "It seems we need to use Hydra again," Megatron sneered. "Soundwave, be ready to contact Hydra at any time." "Yes, Master Megatron," Soundwave nodded. "This time, I will make the entire Earth collapse. I will kill Duke, and I will relish seeing that tall guy's expression of pain and remorse." Megatron raised his head and laughed maniacally. But Soundwave began to doubt. Could they really win? Could they even bring back their natural enemy? End of this chapter. Chapter 243, Finally Achieved. "How do you feel?" Duke asked, observing Bruce Banner closely. A week had passed since Bruce began his spiritual cultivation, which was essentially a form of meditation. Bruce Banner opened his eyes and stood up slowly. He looked at his hands, a bit confused. I seem to have a bit more energy, but that's about it." "That's okay," Duke reassured him. "Today, we won't focus on mental strength exercises. Instead, let's test your control over anger." "Anger?" Bruce Banner was puzzled. "How do we test that?" Duke casually pulled up the mirror space and manifested a figure in front of Bruce. Bruce was startled to see the person who appeared before him. Even though he knew it was a fake, he couldn't help but feel a surge of emotions. His heart rate began to rise gradually. The figure was none other than his ex-girlfriend, Betty Ross. "How fast is your heart beating?" Duke asked. Bruce glanced at his wrist monitor. 101. "What kind of experiment is this?" Duke observed Bruce's increased heart rate, attributing it to a surge of adrenaline. "The heart rate doesn't increase without reason, especially when at rest. Of course, conditions like autonomic nerve function regulation disorder, hyperthyroidism, or atrial fibrillation could cause sudden acceleration of the heartbeat, but Bruce was in great shape and didn't suffer from these diseases. Like Wolverine and Victor, Hulk had super regeneration abilities, capable of regenerating vital organs if damaged or destroyed. He was immune to all diseases and poisons and could survive extreme temperatures. Whether a severed hand could grow back was unknown to Duke, but Hulk's defense was extremely strong, though not at the level of Superman's. Lasers and similar attacks couldn't harm him. Duke didn't have a persistent scientific mind to think about splitting the Hulk to see if he could heal. Visceral injuries could heal quickly. In Banner's form, his physical fitness was much stronger than that of ordinary people. Although he wasn't immune to viruses, he rarely got sick. Banner had never suffered from common diseases like colds. 105, 112, Bruce reported as his heart rate continued to climb. Duke suddenly tore off Betty's coat. You! Bruce's eyes turned red, and his heartbeat reached 130. Control your anger. Have you forgotten what I taught you? Duke said sternly. Also, she is no longer your girlfriend. Have you forgotten? Even though Banner had sent the breakup letter, they had been lovers for several years. Seeing her clothes being torn off bit by bit, how could he remain calm? Even if he knew it wasn't really Betty, but just a dummy, it still affected him. The dummy had the same face and body as Betty. He wasn't hard-hearted. He couldn't be indifferent. It's worth mentioning that Betty Ross didn't write back, but instead went back to Dr. Sampson. It seemed like the whole family had a knack for not staying apart. Ha! Ha! Bruce closed his eyes, exhaled heavily, and his heart rate dropped to 120. But then, with another tear, it shot back up. Although Bruce had his eyes closed, his ears were still open. He could hear everything. From just a glance, he knew how many layers Betty Ross was wearing. A windbreaker on the outside, a small suit in the middle, and a shirt inside. Now the middle suit was gone, leaving 2 layers of defense. Lifting the 3rd layer would already be a humiliation, a stimulus. Bruce couldn't help but open his eyes again. Control your emotions, Duke interrupted. Remember what I said. Teaching you the practice of spiritual power is not to restrain Hulk and prevent him from coming out, but for you to communicate with him better. Experience it yourself. Learn how to let the rage show up, and... Bruce Banner's face turned red with frustration. This is humiliating, he muttered. Can you control your anger? Duke asked, raising an eyebrow. Without waiting for an answer, he suddenly patted Betty on the shoulder, letting his hands slide down slowly. The watch on Bruce's wrist began to beep as his anger rose. Ahem, this feels a bit wrong, even for me, Duke said, scratching his head and retracting his hand before it went too far. He knew he needed Banner as an ally, and pushing him too hard would only backfire. As Duke stepped back, another figure appeared, Dr. Sampson. Bruce Banner recognized him immediately. Though they had only met once, the memory of the man who had betrayed him was unforgettable. Seeing Sampson's hand on Betty's shoulder made Banner's eyes flare with anger, and the watch beeped faster. Do you need me to make him stop? Duke asked. How dare you? Bruce shouted, his eyes blazing with fury. The watch's alarm reached a critical level. Finally, the watch hit 200. Roar! Bruce Banner began to transform. His skin turned green, veins and blood vessels bulging rapidly. His muscles expanded, and in moments he became the Hulk. Stay conscious, Banner. Don't fall asleep. Remember, don't fall asleep, Duke shouted. Roar, no Hulk, roar. Banner struggled to maintain control, but it was futile. In the end, Bruce Banner couldn't withstand the Hulk's power. He disappeared, fully transforming into the green giant Hulk. Hulk didn't attack Duke immediately. Instead, he rushed forward and smashed Dr. Sampson into the ground with a single punch. Then he turned to Betty Ross, reaching out to grab her. When he failed, he let out a frustrated growl and turned away. It seemed Hulk still remembered Betty Ross as someone important, even if she was no longer his girlfriend. Otherwise, she might have met the same fate as Dr. Sampson. Finally, Hulk turned his gaze to Duke, his eyes filled with rage. End of this chapter. Chapter 244. Going to Skull Island. You know me, right? Roar. Hulk pounded his chest like a gorilla. Okay, I won't kill you. Eh? How long have I been sleeping? When Bruce Banner woke up, he found that his head hurt extraordinarily, which had never happened before. In the past, when he woke up, he would only feel a little uncomfortable, but this headache was severe. Wait, where are we? After coming to his senses, Banner suddenly realized that he was not in Karajan, but in a paradise. There were mountains and water. Everything here was primitive, like an uncultivated lost land. Then he was stunned because he found himself moving. He looked around and, oh, crabs. The frightened Bruce Banner quickly grabbed Duke's clothes for fear of falling off. He was actually on the shoulder of a giant monkey, and that big black monkey was at least 100 meters tall by visual estimation. A huge chimpanzee. Oh, Mom, I'm panicking. I want to go home. Why are you afraid of him? Don't worry. King Kong is very gentle, Duke said. In other words, you are in a panic now, but you can jump up and beat Surtur in Thor 3. That guy is much bigger than King Kong. Well, it's Banner now, not Hulk. From his appearance to the final explosion of Asgard, Surtur has been growing in size. When Hulk jumped up, it must have been hundreds of meters, and there must be thousands of meters behind. Gentle? Bruce Banner's eyes widened. No matter how he looked at it, he couldn't see any gentleness in this chimpanzee. At this moment, a low humming sound came from his ear. Humans, you'd better sit still. Can he talk? This was Bruce Banner's last thought before flying off. In the next second, he flew straight up. Of course, he didn't actually fly. King Kong had jumped up. After several climbs, they had already entered the hinterland of the deep mountain. Vomit. This time, he really vomited. When his feet were finally on the ground, he bent over and vomited loudly, almost spitting out bile. Where is this? King Kong, Skull Island, Duke smiled. Aren't you curious where those skeleton reptiles came from? Here? Bruce Banner froze for a moment, then looked up at King Kong. Well, he could only see his stomach. This orangutan is so big, it seems that it is not surprising to have such big skeleton reptiles. Where did he go? When he came back to his senses, he found that King Kong had walked away with big strides. You are a guest, so of course he, the host, is going to prepare for your arrival. Don't be scared for a while, Duke smiled mysteriously. Scared? I'm already scared. Bruce Banner wiped the sweat from his forehead. He had seen a gorilla that was nearly 30 meters tall, but those 35-meter-long skeleton reptiles didn't feel so scary. Is this shocking? The skeleton reptiles you saw were all from 35 years ago, and King Kong was only 30 meters tall at that time, Duke recalled. What? Bruce Banner opened his mouth again in surprise. In 35 years, it has grown twice as long? Wait, you mean those skeleton reptiles should also... What is the concept of a 70-meter-long skeleton reptile? If it weren't for superheroes like them, it would be enough to destroy New York back and forth with that thing rushing to New York. I'm afraid you guessed it right, Duke nodded. In the past 35 years, the creatures on Skull Island seem to have launched a body competition, growing larger and larger. King Kong 35 years ago was still a young man, not fully grown up. But even as an adult, he would only be about 50 meters tall, and then he would basically stop growing. 35 years later, King Kong's body has nearly doubled in size. Who knows how tall he can grow if he continues to grow? There is also a limit to getting bigger, which is often related to the environment. Duke thinks that more than 100 meters is his limit. Because Skull Island is only so big and surrounded by clouds, it is impossible to grow gorillas of several kilometers. It could also be why Duke fed him the magic substance. A King Kong, oh knows magic? Now King Kong is strong enough to fight against Godzilla. Duke slowly sat on the reef. How is it? How does Hulk feel after waking up? It seems different. When Hulk emerged, I was shrouded in darkness. I felt very sleepy, and soon fell asleep. After waking up, how should I put it? I felt a particularly severe headache, Bruce Banner said slowly. In the past, when Hulk woke up, I would only fight with him to regain control of my body. But it was always brief. I was quickly overpowered, and then lost consciousness until I woke up again. It seems that Hulk can't completely control his body. There is a limit. But now, I actually had the sensation of wanting to sleep and could feel the darkness enveloping me. I didn't feel this at all before. It was like falling into a black mist instantly and completely losing consciousness. Now, falling into the darkness doesn't mean losing consciousness instantly. I can still feel and be aware, even if only briefly before falling asleep again. This is already a big improvement. It seems there is progress, Duke smiled. What's the reason for the headache? Bruce asked. That's your consciousness trying to open your eyes. Open my eyes? Bruce Banner was a little confused, but then he understood. I get it. He was asleep before. In his waking hours, the Hulk sees the world through his eyes, and now he's trying to see through the Hulk's eyes. This is called the eye-opening process. You will experience some pain in the future, but don't worry, it won't be as painful as childbirth. Heh. By the way, why did you bring me here? Could it be just to tell me where the skeleton reptile came from? Bruce Banner asked. Of course not. I brought you here to use Hulk's strength, Duke said. Hulk? You two can only achieve the eye-opening process through frequent switching between the two of you. As I said, you can't suppress the Hulk all the time. You have to accept him and recognize him. Your mental strength will become stronger as you exercise, and then Hulk will appear less frequently until his rage is full. Bruce Banner understood. So it's not a good thing that Hulk hasn't appeared? Yes, he has always been there, and he is growing slowly. If you don't let him out, he doesn't really disappear. Until the anger is full, he will compete with you for control of the body. And I need you to talk to him, so the switch is necessary. I see. At that moment, a black shadow flew over. Boom, a huge wave was set off. End of this chapter. Chapter 245, Guests of Skull Island. Because the two were sitting on the reef, the water was very clear, so the huge waves from this sudden attack directly hit them. Of course, Duke activated the ice shield, and all the water froze when it splashed on it. As for Bruce Banner, well, who cares? He was drenched, looking like a drowned rat. Banner was stunned. After a moment, he wiped the seawater off his face and cursed, "Oh, Crab, you are too mean." Ah! Duke continued to laugh. "What are you talking about? Is it the Kraken, the giant sea monster?" Banner was a little dazed, looking at the huge body rolling in the sea, mainly because it was too big. The largest giant squid can have a mantle length of 6 meters, a total length of 6 to 12 meters, and the longest can reach 20 meters. The maximum weight is 1,000 kilograms. The one in front of him felt no smaller than King Kong and looked about 80 meters long. As we all know, the ratio of a squid's body to its tentacles is basically half and half, except for the 2 longest arms. In other words, the squid in front of him must be at least 40 meters long. Oh, by karma. Although the tentacles were still churning, Bruce Banner knew that this Kraken was dead. There was a hole in the position of the brain, and there were large and small scars on the body. More importantly, the color of the real Kraken was white. If you've ever slaughtered a squid, you know that after cutting the nerves in the head, the squid turns from dark to white in a short period. Usually, this is a sign that it is dead. The 80-meter white object was really uncommon. The reason why the tentacles were still tumbling randomly was because of the nerve lines and neurons on it. Eat. King Kong hummed and strode over. It was obvious that he had thrown this guy over. "King Kong, you are too naughty," Duke joked, pointing. "Ho, ho, ho, ho." King Kong grinned loudly. "Come on, this is King Kong's feast for guests. Eat," Duke said. How to eat? Bruce Banner was a little confused. If someone else were around, he would definitely give him a slap in the face. The 80-meter Kraken, how do you eat this? The tentacles were thicker than his whole body, and a slice 1 centimeter thick would be enough for him to eat a full meal. But he had watched Duke's live broadcast and knew that cooking was not difficult. Sure enough, Duke waved his hand, and the entire huge body went up to the sky. Immediately afterwards, the huge ice blade opened the belly, and the internal organs fell into the seawater in a swarm, quickly washing away. Bruce Banner swore it was the first time he saw a squid dismantled like this. After processing, Duke rolled it into a ball and then trapped it in a huge air ball. Then suddenly there was a sky fire. Zila, zila, zila. It was baked in less than 10 minutes. It was golden and crispy, and the fat was bubbling, which looked extraordinarily delicious. Unfortunately, there were no condiments, but it smelled really good. Kacha, kacha, kacha. The tentacles were sliced and thrown to Banner, of course, in an ice tray. "I want those giant eyeballs," Bruce Banner yelled. "You can eat." The eyes and mouth of the squid are the most expensive, followed by the tentacles, but the body of the squid is the cheapest. The big eyes were several meters long, and it took Banner a week to gnaw them all, so he cut a few pieces and threw them on the plate. Duke also likes to eat squid eyes, but this product was too big, and after cutting into pieces, it was a piece of black and white guy, which looked like he had no appetite. He cut a piece of squid mouth. As for the others, they were all given to King Kong. King Kong could eat 1 head a day without any problem. Hoo 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 hoo. King Kong was also polite. He picked it up and gnawed it. Duke's roasted ones were completely different from his own roasted ones, and the taste was particularly good. It's a pity that Duke only comes here once in a while. Bruce Banner wondered as he gnawed. "I've been curious since just then. Ow, why can King Kong speak? Oh, I mean, he can speak human language. Isn't it amazing?" Is it true that the creatures on this island can communicate? Duke glanced at him and replied, Are you kidding? I installed a magic device directly in his throat. He can't speak Chinese, English, French, or any other human language, but the magic device translates his orangutan slang into a special signal that other beings, including creatures, can understand. Bruce Banner, mid-bite, suddenly dropped his food and stared at Duke in disbelief. Is this for real? Why would I lie to you? Duke responded. Oh no, I'm just a little confused. I feel like my brain is overloaded. My knowledge from 7 doctoral degrees seems insufficient, Bruce Banner said, rubbing his head in frustration. Ha ha! Duke laughed heartily. This small magical device is unique. It can simulate a variety of signals that other species can understand. For example, if King Kong yells to express "go away," humans, bison, spiders, and grasshoppers around will all understand it in their respective biological languages and leave. It can convert King Kong's words into multiple biological language signals simultaneously. Likewise, the reverse is also true. The signals from various creatures around will be transformed into King Kong's language thanks to the device in his ears. Let's eat. After you finish, you'll be King Kong's friend and gain the qualification to freely enter and exit Skull Island, Duke said. Do I have to finish all of this? Bruce Banner looked at the large plate, which weighed about 10 pounds. He felt a bit regretful. The sliced squid Duke had given him was already enough, and he had asked for another portion of squid eyes. Why, can't handle it. If you can't, let Hulk take over, Duke teased. Who said I can't? I can do it, Banner retorted, his pride stung. There's no time limit, right? He suddenly realized. Before King Kong finishes eating, you have to finish. Just don't take too long, Duke pointed to King Kong. Hoo-ho! Bruce Banner looked up and saw that the orangutan was devouring his food at an alarming rate. He quickly sped up his own eating. An hour later, Bruce finally finished his meal. He lay down, refusing to move, mainly because he couldn't get up. Do you want Hulk to come here and exert his strength? Who are you planning to fight, King Kong? Duke asked. Deathclaw, King Kong roared. Deathclaw? Banner asked, puzzled. They're the skeleton reptiles. That's the name King Kong gave them, Duke explained. All right, when do we fight? Banner asked, eager. We can go home at sunset and come back once a week, Duke replied. Okay, I also want to see how powerful those Deathclaws are, Banner shouted, pounding his fist in excitement. End of this chapter. Chapter 246, The Prelude to Reunion 1. While Duke was training Bruce Banner on Skull Island, the outside world was in chaos. Danger seemed to come in waves. At the secret headquarters of the Autobots, Charlotte Milling, the new leader, looked up and asked, What is this? A silent demonstration. Charlotte Milling, although not a villain, was an accomplice of the Decepticons and often made things difficult for Sam. She was a character that left people in awe, though she eventually worked together with the Autobots. She didn't particularly like the robots and even considered suggesting they be sent away if not necessary. We've seen silent protest before. This is worse. He's very angry now, Ironhide said, shrugging his shoulders. He then nudged Optimus Prime, who was sulking. Optimus Prime, come up with some tricks. Optimus Prime transformed from his truck form back into a robot and looked down angrily at Charlotte. You lied to us. You said all the information about our planet would be shared with us. Then please tell me, why do you have this? Optimus Prime pointed to a mysterious part. We don't know yet. Until now, only the director of the 7th District knew about it. This is a secret that few people know, and few insiders are alive. Allow me to introduce you to astronaut Buzz Aldrin, one of the first 2 men to walk on the moon, Charlotte said. It's an honor to meet you, fellow cosmic traveler, Buzz Aldrin said. The honor is mine, Optimus Prime replied. After some exchange, Ironhide asked, Have you checked the escape pod? Everyone looked confused. The name of the spaceship is Arc. I saw it escape from Cybertron with my own eyes. It carried the Autobot technology that would allow us to win that war back, as well as its captain, Optimus Prime explained. Who is the captain? Charlotte asked. Great royal enemy. He is the inventor of that technology and was the leader of the Autobots before me. I must find him before the Decepticons do. I hope it will not be too late, Optimus Prime said. Optimus Prime and the other Autobots then boarded a spaceship to retrieve the great royal enemy and revived him with the original Matrix. Duke had handed the Matrix to Optimus Prime, knowing that without it, the great royal enemy could not be resurrected. The original Matrix could only be used by the leader of Cybertron and their descendants, so only Optimus Prime and those approved by the leader could manipulate it. With the Sunshine Cannon destroyed, its current function was merely as an energy source, similar to the Fire Seed source. Duke had collected the Fire Source and returned the original Matrix to Optimus Prime. After being revived, the great royal enemy betrayed the Autobots, destroyed their secret headquarters, took the energy column, and disappeared. When Optimus Prime and the others returned, they were bewildered. Charlotte Milling was furious. "Look well, Optimus Prime. It's all on your head." "Jerry, I love you so much, but I'm sorry. The higher-ups want you to commit suicide," said the laser bird, launching an assassination mission. All those who knew the truth about the dark side of the moon had to be purged. Ah! 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 Megatron shot the body with a single blast and sat on the throne. He and I were supposed to meet on Earth, but something unexpected happened. To revive him, only the energy matrix of Optimus Prime can do it. Smart. Then he's your partner, Master Megatron? Soundwave flattered. He's my greatest triumph, Megatron replied. That's too powerful, Soundwave continued to praise. When the energy column is connected, Cybertron will be saved. Megatron sighed, then connected to the communication. The plan has already started. Great Prince of Asgard, when will you begin? I've already started, and soon you'll see the New York project. With Loki responded. Okay, I'm waiting for your excitement. Let's wait and see. Fighting on two fronts, Megatron finally chose to stay away from New York and launch a war plan in Chicago, while Loki's plan continued to unfold in New York. Originally, Loki intended for the Decepticons to attack X Academy to draw firepower, giving him the opportunity to open the wormhole and let the Chitauri army in. But now, he realized it was beneficial for the Decepticons to stay away from New York. The Autobots would surely rush to Chicago, and with Royal Enemy cooperating with Megatron's Decepticons, the Autobots might not stand a chance. The X-Men would likely head to Chicago as well, diverting most of the attention. This would allow Loki to carry out his rat strategy covertly. Megatron initially wanted to act together to prevent Loki from betraying him, but Royal Enemy insisted on acting first. On one hand, Royal Enemy was unaware of Earth's strength, and on the other, he wanted to take Earth first to save Cybertron. If he was too late, Loki would have taken Earth and then turned against him. That was unacceptable. The arrogant Royal Enemy decided to launch an attack first, activate the energy column, and pull Cybertron over. At every critical moment, there always seems to be a fool who jumps out to cause trouble. Due to Royal Enemy's rebellion, the high-ranking officials in the United States began to suspect the Autobots, even worrying that Optimus Prime and his team were spies planted by Royal Enemy. Ultimately, they decided to expel the Autobots and send Optimus Prime and his party away from Earth. As for where they would go, interestingly, this time Royal Enemy did not make a statement to split the cooperation between Autobots and humans, and the top U.S. officials made a similar plan. Perhaps Royal Enemy didn't have time, or maybe he had more confidence due to the presence of more experts this time. Of course, the Autobots were not sent away in the end. The energy block was still in Karazhan and belonged to them. If they wanted to leave, they had to take the energy block with them. The higher-ups realized that the energy block was indeed a troublesome issue. If it stayed on Earth, the Decepticons would surely take it. Fortunately, Optimus Prime was allowed to take it away. Even if they wanted to earn it, they had to get off Earth and fight for it. Unfortunately, Karazhan couldn't be contacted. Duke wasn't in New York, and no one but him could open the collection. Diana on Broadway received a letter and immediately frowned. Is this a trap? End of this chapter. Chapter 2 and 47, The Prelude to Reunion 1. Diana stared at the letter in her hand, feeling a twinge of suspicion. Something about it seemed off, almost like a conspiracy. Dylan Good is a human spy. His company has been cooperating with the Decepticons, and he is a puppet manipulated by Megatron. Their plan has been arranged long ago, using the energy column to pull the planet Cybertron to Earth in order to save their Cybertron. I don't know why, but he said so. I am Carly, Dylan Good's secretary. Please believe me, only you can save the Earth. The words were clear and sincere, but Diana couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. Carly was the heroine in Transformers 3. Although Sam, the protagonist, had been removed, Carly had taken over as the leading lady in the new plot. She was still the secretary to the main villain, Dylan Good, who had been Sam's rival in the original storyline. After a moment of hesitation, Diana decided to search for news about Dylan Good. It wasn't hard to find information. Chicago had become a restricted area. Decepticons were emerging everywhere, and videos of them installing the energy column had flooded the internet. Chicago in particular was overrun. The Decepticons had opened an energy portal, and those lurking on the moon were already shuttling through. Today, Chicago was completely isolated. Except for the initial videos uploaded online, all contact with the city had been severed. Diana knew the situation was urgent. Although she wasn't sure if the letter was genuine, she decided it was worth the risk. Carlos, Samir, Jennifer, Logan, Victor, get ready to pack up and go to Chicago. Diana issued a summons. Carlos, who was shopping, dropped his favorite clothes and ran off. Got it. Logan, playing with his daughter, smiled apologetically. Everything will be safe. Kara reminded him. I'm going too, Pa, Laura insisted. Logan frowned. No, you stay here with your mother. I'm not a 3-year-old anymore. Something might happen in New York. You need to stay here, Logan urged repeatedly. Laura was puzzled. Huh, what could happen in New York? I don't know. My intuition tells me this isn't normal. Megatron made a comeback less than half a year after being defeated. I'm sure he has a backup plan, Logan explained. Logan had seen the news from Chicago on his phone. His keen instincts told him this was no ordinary situation. This time, the threat was significant. He didn't know that Loki was already planning something in New York, but he sensed that Megatron wouldn't act without a solid plan. Last time, Megatron had been defeated by Duke in Los Angeles. There had to be something more this time. He has allies? In New York? Laura's eyes lit up. Maybe. You go back and be careful in New York, Logan said, driving his wife and daughter to Karajan. He wasn't sure if Megatron's allies were in New York or if they even existed. He just knew this attack felt strange. Samir, Jennifer, and Victor also received the message and hurried towards Karajan. Meanwhile, the X-Men Academy received a call from the president. I understand. We will do our best, Ruiwen promised. That would be great, you know. I believe in Optimus Prime and the Autobots, but unfortunately, it is still difficult to resist the decision of the Council. But compared to them, I still trust us Earthlings, said the president. I understand, Mr. President, Raven replied with a smile. Trust in Earthlings? She wasn't even sure if she was one. According to Duke, their X genes came from the experiments of cosmic gods. Strictly speaking, they were half Earthling, half alien. This time, with you as the main force, we must stop the natural enemies, and Megatron. I hope to eliminate those Decepticons once and for all, the president shouted, clearly agitated. We'll try our best. You know this is nearly impossible, Raven sighed. Even if the top combat team was deployed, disintegrating the Decepticons on Earth was a monumental task. Most of the Decepticons were GAT, here in Chicago, over 80%, but nearly 20% were scattered across the globe. That 20% alone numbered in the thousands, while the 80% in Chicago were densely packed. The city could be described as an ant nest of Decepticons. I know, just do your best. In short, I don't want to see Royal Enemy and Megatron escape. Also, eliminate all the Decepticon cadres, the president insisted. I understand. I will contact Karazhan and notify the Justice League. Raven assured him. That would be best. All right, let's proceed. I still have a meeting. By the way, keep an eye on Optimus Prime and the others, and give me an assessment afterward, the president concluded before hanging up. Raven sighed. Evaluate? What kind of evaluation? Wasn't it just to judge whether Optimus Prime and the other Autobots had any plans to secretly control the natural enemies? If they did, they would be killed on the spot. If not, their safety risks would still be assessed to determine if they should remain on Earth. This was not a pleasant task. Something happened, Raven. Look. Hank strode in, holding an iPad with the latest news from Chicago. I already know, Raven said irritably, pushing the iPad away. The president called just now. We need to mobilize. Hank, inform Jean, Scott, Storm, Iceman, and John Pyro to assemble. Hank nodded and put away the iPad. What about the others? This battle is very dangerous. The others should not go to the battlefield, Raven shook her head. I see. Do you need? Just then, the phone rang. It was Diana. Raven, you know it. Diana's voice came through urgently. Yes, Diana. Come and gather right away. Let's go together. Diana finished speaking hurriedly and hung up. Raven muttered. In Karajan, Duke had been called back, and Diana had called back. After reading the latest news, Duke nodded. Honey, let's go according to your arrangement, Duke said. Of course I'm with you guys, Raven replied. At that moment, a black battle armor descended from the sky. Don't leave me out this time. I want to fight hard and take on the natural enemy, declared Tony Stark. Today, a reader mentioned that they didn't see the relationship between the protagonist and Diana after reading the latest chapter. Instead, they felt there was a conflict between the two. Although the reader had no fan value and likely read a pirated version, I took their feedback to heart. I haven't been in many relationships and lack experience in writing about love. Writing emotional scenes feels awkward and can easily derail the story. I'll try to avoid emotional scenes in the future, as I really don't have much experience in this area. End of this chapter. Chapter 248, The Prelude to Reunion 1. Duke glanced at Tony Stark and said with a smile, "Then you'd better beat Optimus Prime." He had promised Tony last time that when Megatron returned, the big monster would be handed over to him. Tony looked a bit depressed. Fighting with Optimus Prime was no small feat. It was said that Royal Enemy was still the teacher of Optimus Prime. The teacher betrayed the students, and there would inevitably be a reckoning, battle between them, making it difficult for Tony to get involved. Okay, let's choose Megatron, just because of the endless battle last time, Tony Stark said, full of fighting spirit. The last time he had let Megatron escape, but not this time. Soon, Batman Bruce Wayne showed up in his Batmobile. Before him was the Flash Barry Allen, followed by Cyborg Victor Stone. There were only 4 members of the Justice League now, without Aquaman Arthur. Where's Aquaman? Cyborg scanned around, but found no trace of him. Although the Justice League was an alliance, it had been very loose over the years, with members mostly doing their own thing. They only gathered for major events and rarely saw each other otherwise. Aquaman is still in the Atlantic Ocean. He couldn't catch up, Mr. Wayne said. How is it, Wayne? Are you okay? Duke stretched out his hand for a handshake. It's okay, but I'm afraid this is the last battle. Wayne patted his shoulder, his voice still deep and somber. After all, I'm old. Tony Stark walked up with a smile. I can play for another 10 years. You were hiding in a turtle shell, Wayne shrugged. Like Tony, he was a technology guy. Although his Batman uniform added defense, attack acceleration, and agility, his technology was only used for assistance. He was more of a fighter. Tony, on the other hand, was completely dependent on his armor uniform. If the two of them faced off without any gear, Wayne could knock out Tony in minutes, although Tony could also hold his own in a fight. Then, do you want to have one too? Tony Stark asked, not angry. The Stark family and the Wayne family had a fairly harmonious relationship. Although they had competed with each other for 100 years, they had not fought to the death. Their relationship was much better than with the Osborn family. Forget it, I have rhinitis. Wayne directly refused, joking that he was afraid he would suffocate to death hiding in the armor. Duke, I have a request. Can you accept the Justice League after this battle? Wayne said suddenly. This made Cyborg and Flash extremely surprised. Although the Justice League was very loose, it was still a family they were familiar with. Now it seemed awkward to integrate into another family. Why, can't you move? Duke asked. I can't keep up anymore. Wayne sighed. After the Chicago battle, I will retire and raise my offspring at home. Understood, Duke nodded, expressing his understanding. At this moment, Mr. Wayne was over 50 years old, older than Tony. Over 50 may not seem old, but Batman aged fast. After all, he was a fighter who relied on his body, not on armor like Tony. Even if Tony was 80 years old, as long as his body and brain were still functioning, he could still fight aliens with his armor. But Mr. Wayne couldn't. Although he had a Batman uniform, he relied more on his powerful fighting skills and his body. He was not a Chinese-style master of internal skills, whose aura became more powerful with age. Foreign martial arts relied on age and body. After the age of 50, the body began to age. It's not that he couldn't fight anymore. Batman could still fight until he was 60 or 70 years old. It was just a question of whether he could keep up. More and more powerful villains appeared. More and more guys exceeded the limit of his ability to deal with them, and he felt more and more exhausted. Arthur once said in the Justice League that he had no superpowers and was just an ordinary person. Seeing more and more powerful superheroes emerge, he finally decided to retire. The appearance of Karazanduk solidified his decision. However, if the world ever needed him again, he wouldn't hesitate to don his uniform and stand against any supervillain. Duke understood that Mr. Wayne wasn't alone and could fight without restraint until the end. Wayne had a large family and a significant business, making it impossible for him to act without consideration. In this world, the older Batman had a daughter and a son, unlike the numerous adopted children in the comics. His daughter, Helena Wayne, who had a connection with Catwoman, was now an adult. His son, Damian Wayne, was born to Talia al Ghul of the League of Assassins. Damian was still at an age where he was difficult to manage. To ensure the family's continuity, Mr. Batman had to retire and focus on raising his children. While his daughter was grown, his sons still needed guidance. Duke glanced at Barry Allen and Victor Stone before saying, "Actually, there's no need to disband the Justice League. Even if you retire, you can still choose a suitable leader." "Who would be suitable?" Mr. Wayne asked with a smile. Both Flash and Cyborg looked a bit embarrassed. Barry, with his impulsive nature and incredible speed, wasn't fit for leadership. He was more of a car than a will. Cyborg had a calm mind and analytical abilities, but as a cyborg, he faced resistance, especially from Arthur. If Cyborg were made captain, Arthur would likely challenge him at every turn. Arthur himself had the demeanor of a general, but he was more suited to be a cannon. In short, none of the three had the charisma to lead, and 3 people alone couldn't form a team. Diana was originally the most suitable candidate, but unfortunately, she is destined not to join the Justice League, Wayne sighed. "Asking my wife to help you? That's a joke." "What about Superman?" Duke asked. "Clark?" Wayne paused, shaking his head. "Clark retired a long time ago. He's been spending his time with Lois to make up for lost moments." Duke smiled, recognizing Superman's devotion. Superman was an absolutely positive character with a radiant personality. In the comics, aside from his first love, his lifelong love was Lois, with only occasional flirtations with Diana. Batman, on the other hand, had nearly 10 lovers and countless short-term flings. "Are you willing?" Duke turned to Flash and Cyborg. Neither of them responded. "Don't worry, think it over. It's okay if you don't join. We can still help each other when needed. For now, let's focus on dealing with the Jijia pigeon." With that, Duke opened a portal and sent everyone away. In a dark corner, a man whispered, "My Lord Duke and the others have left New York. Your plan can proceed." "Very good," came the reply. End of this chapter. Chapter 249, Borrowing Someone from You. What a wonderful victory. Loki smiled as the comms rang. "Prince of Asgard, you have betrayed our cooperation," came Megatron's angry roar from the other end. He had already noticed that Duke had brought people to Chicago, and his plan was still being implemented, but Loki had not moved at all. "Oh, is that so? Where did you get that idea?" "It seems you were the ones who betrayed the cooperation," Loki sneered. The original cooperation was not like this. We agreed that after I acted first, you would then start your plan. But you went ahead of schedule." Loki questioned loudly. "Roar!" Megatron was furious, but he knew that it was true that their side had broken the contract first. However, he couldn't defeat the natural enemy, and he really didn't trust Loki, the god of lies. The other party had asked to launch one step ahead, and they followed up with the implementation plan, always feeling that something was wrong. Loki is cunning, and it's impossible for him to do something stupid to attract fire for them. Taking the first step might attract Duke's firepower, and of course, it might also seize the opportunity. Therefore, he didn't stop the natural enemy too much. After all, they were a group now. Loki was also very angry. Do you think he was willing to move a little early? His plan had to be divided into several steps, and he had to grab the universal Rubik's Cube first. The Rubik's Cube was not in New York, although it was not far away. When he snatched the Rubik's Cube, Duke would definitely be attracted to him, but he had to make a move first. That's why he asked Megatron to lead the Decepticons and follow him after he attacked. Most of his plans were carried out in the dark. As long as he got the Rubik's Cube, it would be difficult for the other party to find them. Afterwards, the actions of the Decepticons would be more eye-catching, thus attracting most of the people to go to Chicago, buying enough time for him. When the Battle of Chicago started, he could open the wormhole to attract the Tory army. At that time, taking advantage of the lack of resources in the Battle of Chicago, he would take out New York's superheroes in one fell swoop, thus gradually encroaching on the surrounding area. As for Duke and the others coming back, haha, he hoped the natural enemy and Megatron would be stronger, right? He was very angry at the moment. To be honest, launching the plan first was not without the possibility of exposing himself and attracting Duke, but he had to do this to make his time more abundant. Now, although the Decepticons had attracted attention for him, the possibility of him launching a plan and being targeted by Duke would be greatly reduced, but at the same time, his planning time would also be greatly shortened. The most unlucky situation was that before he opened the wormhole and brought in the Chitauri army, Duke had already killed the Decepticons and eliminated the danger in Chicago. Then they would turn around and deal with him with all their strength, and he would be unlucky. But since the matter had already happened, it was useless for him to get angry again, so he had to hurry up and act. Although you breached the contract first, I will still act according to the agreed plan. At that time, you should still worry about your own safety. That natural enemy? What an idiot. Loki cursed, then turned off the communication and started the universal Rubik's Cube. Oh, by the way, Carly's eyes were blue, and she had been controlled by Loki. The letter to Diana was also arranged by him, a plan to divert the tiger away from the mountain. Just a few minutes later, places like Washington, Metropolis, and New York felt a strong earthquake at the same time, an earthquake measuring 8.3 on the Richter scale. But the strange thing was that the earthquake did not spread. It just collapsed a base of tens of thousands of square meters in the western suburbs of Washington. Director Chief Fury, can you hear me? Phil Coulson shouted into the communicator. The cosmic cube has fallen into enemy hands. Hill, where are you? Maria Hill climbed out of the car with difficulty. Thanks to the sturdy vehicle produced by S.H.I.E.L.D. and her solid skills, she managed to reach the end of the tunnel. Many people were buried, and it's unclear how many survived, she reported. Order all personnel not involved in rescue operations to search for that box, Fury commanded. Understood, Hill responded. Coulson returned to the base immediately. This is a level 7 incident. Our war begins now, Fury added. Roger that, Coulson replied. Natasha, where are you? Coulson asked. It's strange, I'm on my way to Chicago, the Black Widow replied, raising her eyebrows. It was odd because Coulson had ordered her to Chicago not long ago. Had he forgotten? Turn around immediately and return to the base, Coulson instructed. Why? Natasha inquired. Barton is under mind control. The NASA test base was destroyed. The enemy took the cosmic cube, and they also controlled a group of technicians and Dr. Selvig, Coulson explained quickly. On the F-22, Black Widow, Captain America, and Agent 13 exchanged shocked glances. I'll turn around right away, Natasha said, twisting the joystick to redirect the F-22 back to the S.H.I.E.L.D. base. Who did it? Captain America asked. According to the director, Loki, Coulson replied. Loki. Captain America was confused. Loki, the god of mischief and lies in Norse mythology, is also the god of fire. He is the son of the giant Farbauti and the giantess Laufey, and the brother of Odin, the god of the Aesir tribe, Black Widow explained. But as far as we know, the myth isn't entirely accurate. Loki should be Thor's younger brother. Not long ago, she had witnessed the fall of Thor's hammer, but Captain America had been on a field mission and was unaware. Chicago has Duke, and they should be fine. The loss of the cosmic cube is our biggest problem. Come back soon. I think, what is Loki planning? Coulson finished, then hung up the phone. It's really strange that Loki would show up at this time, Agent 13 remarked. These two events are too coincidental. Loki may have cooperated with Megatron. Captain America speculated, sensing the connection between the two incidents. Okay, we won't participate in the Battle of Chicago, Black Widow decided. On the other side, Fury had already contacted Karajan. Howard Stark answered the phone. Who is this? Howard asked. Mr. Howard Stark? Fury responded. Yes, this is Howard. Who's calling? Nick Fury, director of S.H.I.E.L.D. I need to borrow someone from you. I know Dr. Banner is with you, right? We need his help to track down something, Fury explained. Howard was stunned. He glanced at the man lying on the rattan chair next to him and said, I can't make that decision. The boss is in Chicago. This is urgent, Fury insisted. Well, I'll ask Dr. Banner. He's free to decide, Howard replied. End of this chapter. Chapter 250, The Eye of World Observation. After hanging up the phone, Howard Stark looked at Duke in shock. Did you really guess right? That's right. The man lying on the recliner was Duke. He hadn't left at all. The one who left was just a phantom. Of course, the phantom didn't have the ability to open the portal. It was Duke who had opened it himself. Heh, Duke smiled and remained silent. It's amazing. You actually guessed that Nick Fury would come to Dr. Banner. Wait, you didn't secretly influence his mind, did you? Howard Stark looked at Duke suspiciously. Do I seem that careless? Duke glared at his restless elder nephew, then turned his head and asked, Banner, you can decide for yourself whether you want to help S.H.I.E.L.D., but my suggestion is to go. It's a good opportunity to test the results of your training during this period. Bruce Banner hesitated, but then nodded. Okay. Well, go ahead. Just contact him yourself. Ah. Banner turned to leave. How did you deduce that Nick Fury would come to borrow Banner? Howard Stark continued to press. Have you been dead for almost 10 years and forgotten how to use your brain? Oh, that's right, you don't have a brain. Duke curled his lips. Howard Stark received a critical hit. What did Duke mean by saying he had no brains? Well, biologically speaking, he really didn't have a brain anymore. After all, he was a soul body. If I'm not mistaken, the cosmic cube should have been stolen, Duke said. Of course, he knew it had been stolen, but he couldn't make it too obvious. The god's perspective was amazing, but it was better not to tell others, as they wouldn't understand it. In fact, he had changed a lot of plots, but he still didn't expect Loki to appear on Earth. Really curious? The cosmic cube was handed over to Howard for the purpose of the next plot, but he wasn't sure whether Loki would appear. After all, this world wasn't just Marvel. Loki didn't seem to know about the existence of the Ancient One, or perhaps he did, but knew that the Ancient One wouldn't intervene casually. But it wasn't just Marvel after all. The heroine could chop up Loki as easily as chopping vegetables. Although Clark, the Superman of Metropolis, had retired to accompany his wife at home, he wasn't really retired. When someone endangered the world, he would still fly out. It's just that because of Duke's presence, Superman seemed a little lazy. Almost the same mentality as Mr. Wayne, right? A person who feels that he is old and someone else stands up to protect the world so he can retire. The same goes for the other one, who owes his wife so much, just stops being a good family man for a while. Not to mention the existence of Duke. There were so many masters gathered in Karajan, any of them could beat Loki. He was very curious, what kind of guts did Loki have to dare to mess with Earth? Did he think that by cooperating with the Decepticons, he would be safe and could beat Duke? Yes, the current Chicago Pigeon had gathered more than 5,000 Decepticons, as well as various Cybertron robot beasts, spaceships, chariots, and so on. Although a considerable part of them were mass-produced Decepticons, their large numbers couldn't be ignored. But was that enough to give him courage? Did Liang Jingru give him courage? Those mass-produced robots were nothing more than pieced-together iron shells. Let alone the heroine, experts with ranged attacks like Phoenix Girl and Cyclops could easily KO a large group. Storm's thunder and lightning could cause a large number of Decepticons to shut down and go offline. Logan, Victor, etc. Although they had few energy attack methods, in terms of strength alone, it wasn't a problem for one person to throw a robot. Samir's gun magic had also been perfected. Headshots and point kills were easy. Jennifer could also summon vines, either to entangle or directly strangle those iron lumps like a snake. No matter how you looked at it, Loki had no chance of winning. But he still appeared, which was... Duke was very curious about what was going on in his head. Howard Stark couldn't hold back his frustration any longer. This group of fools lost the Rubik's Cube. Really. Really. He felt utterly humiliated. Back then, Duke had given him the Rubik's Cube when he shamelessly asked for it. To be precise, the owner of the Rubik's Cube was still Duke, and S.H.I.E.L.D. only had the right to use it. And now, damn it, these disciples and subordinates actually lost the borrowed item. It's one thing to lose it, but to even run back to the master's house to ask for help in finding it? Are you incapable? This is shameful. Utterly shameful. I can't show my face anymore. And that bastard didn't even call him officer or leader, not even senior. Instead, he blatantly called himself the director. It's simply infuriating. Doesn't he know that Howard is one of the founders of S-Shield? This is too much. But after a brief moment of anger, Howard Stark understood that this was a matter of position, and Nick Fury was asserting his authority. S-Shield is not a private entity. Although Howard is one of the founders, he has left and is considered dead. Now, he is Duke's subordinate. If it is admitted that he is the former director, doesn't that make S-Shield's status very awkward? And Peggy Carter is still living on Duke's turf. Nick Fury is avoiding suspicion. Forget it. Duke waved his hand to indicate that Howard shouldn't care. Then he stood up and stretched. I have to act too. Loki had calculated against Diana, but it didn't matter. Duke was planning to arrange for her to go to Chicago. Doctor Strange has a watch list that records people from other worlds who may pose a threat to Earth. He can sense all the dangers and appear beside the opponent or trap them, just like making Loki fall for 30 minutes. Duke also has an object that can monitor the dangers of the world for him, named the World Observation Eye. It can record people or things that may threaten the entire world anytime, anywhere, and then provide Duke with references on whether to intervene. When encountering serious danger, it will take the initiative to remind Duke. Therefore, when Loki first entered Earth, he had already been recorded by the World Observation Eye. Of course, he wasn't sure whether Loki's future plan was consistent with the original plot. After all, most of the people had already rushed to Chicago, and he didn't need to get rid of the obstacle of S-Shield. But who can say for sure? Black Widow has returned in an F-22. Chicago. There seems to be a conflict between the Decepticons, specifically a dispute between Megatron and Royal Enemy. This seems to be a good thing for the superheroes who are sneaking in. Shashin Maidong soup is really good. It is very effective in treating night sweats due to lung yin deficiency. After drinking it for less than a week, I no longer feel sweaty when I go to bed at night. I used to turn off the lights and close my eyes for 5 minutes, and I could feel the sweat dripping slowly around my neck. It's rhinitis. I really have severe nasal congestion and can't breathe. Does anyone have a good drug recommendation? It's best to use traditional Chinese medicine without hormones. End of this chapter. Chapter 251, The Battle of Chicago Pigeons, 1. The city is well defended. Humans can no longer stop us, Megatron declared. By evening, the other pillars will reach the launch point. The victory I promised you years ago is within our grasp. Together, we will rebuild Cybertron, he continued. I deign to work with you for the sake of our planet. Natural Enemy suddenly leaped up, grabbing Megatron's head and slamming it against the roof of the building. He tore off a small piece of Megatron's head as a warning. I won't work for you. You must remember the difference. Compared to Megatron, Natural Enemy admired Optimus Prime more. Unfortunately, their ideologies differed. He believed Optimus Prime would choose to stand on Cybertron's side. As for Megatron, he was always an enemy, but cooperation was necessary to save Cybertron. Natural Enemy had been an enemy of the Decepticons one moment and asleep the next. He hadn't experienced the long span of time that had passed. His feelings towards the Decepticons were still rooted in the war. Moreover, Megatron was a student of the fallen King Kong, not the fallen King Kong himself. Natural Enemy, being one of the orthodox descendants of Yuanshi Tianzun, held a very high status. Megatron, in comparison, was a lesser brand. How could he serve Megatron? For now, Natural Enemy was one of the few veteran bigwigs. Arrogant, he could only be the boss of others. How could he be someone else's subordinate? Megatron was furious. He felt used, not betrayed. The Royal Enemy was using him and his Decepticons to achieve the goal of saving Cybertron. In the final battle, the Autobot faction had already lost, and only the Decepticons had the strength to occupy Earth. However, Megatron did not fight back. Firstly, he was not an opponent of Natural Enemy due to his serious injuries and lack of energy supply. Secondly, despite being a villain, his original intention of saving Cybertron had not changed. Just like in Change 3, after seeing Cybertron being dragged over, he said with emotion, "Ah, Cybertron, you?" But being asked to be a subordinate suddenly made him very angry and unwilling. "You think you've won? You're so self-righteous." Megatron sneered. "What did you say?" Natural Enemy was very angry. "Earth superheroes are coming, or have already arrived. Do you think you are very powerful? Haha. You have never seen the power of Karazhan. If I had followed my earliest plan and let Asgard Boy D act first, we would have bought more time." Megatron sneered. Sure enough, Natural Enemy was furious again. He grabbed Megatron and pressed him against the wall, continuing to slam him. "I will let you see the moment I smash that Karazhan." With a sudden force, he threw Megatron downstairs. This was his territory, and he would not allow others to cause trouble. "Idiot!" Megatron snorted as he fell downstairs. "The Decepticons, obey the order. Block the city. No entry, no exit, no survivors," shouted Natural Enemy. With that order, the Decepticons began to disperse. Once more than 10 Decepticons and Cybertron spacecraft attacked. The entire Chicago would be turned into ruins within minutes. Oops! Diana and the others who had just arrived trembled suddenly. This was a city-destroying event. "Damn it, we are running out of time," Diana exclaimed. Originally, they thought the conflict between Natural Enemy and Megatron would be beneficial to them, but they never expected such a result. "Barry, Victor, Bruce, this area is handed over to you." Diana began to divide the work. "No problem," they responded. "Scott, Storm, Bobby, John, you four are in charge of this," Cyclops said, glancing at Jean and nodding. "No problem," they agreed. "It's time for me to show my skills." Burning John clapped his hands excitedly. Iceman Bobby signaled him to calm down. Chin asked curiously, "What about me?" "Your ability is very special. I need you to control the field. You don't have a full-time responsibility. I need you to support other areas as needed," Diana emphasized. "Okay," Chin nodded, expressing her understanding. "Carlos, Samir, Jennifer, Logan, Victor, you go this way," Diana directed. "Okay," they responded in unison. "Wait, what about me?" Tony Stark interjected. "Aren't you going to decide the outcome with Megatron?" Diana glanced at him. "As for the Natural Enemy, leave it to me for now." "Okay," Tony replied reluctantly, casting a wistful glance at the new version of the Big Mac steel lobster on the top floor. Diana answered her phone. "Then Colonel William, how long will it take for you to arrive?" On the huge transport plane, William was a little confused when someone entered his channel. "Excuse me. I'm Diana. People from Karazhan, Academy X, and the Justice League have entered Chicago." "That's great. We still have about 15 minutes to arrive in Chicago, and Optimus Prime and the others are also on the transport plane," William said excitedly. "Well, you enter from the southeast, and this area is handed over to you," Diana ordered. "Okay." After hanging up the phone, Diana turned to the group. "Chin, you and I will go to the southeast for now, clean up the Decepticons over there, and wait for the Autobots to arrive. Once they do, we can complete our mission." "Got it," Chin replied. "Go." Diana clapped her hands. "Remember, try to protect civilians from danger as much as possible, but also pay attention to your own safety." Everyone was momentarily stunned. How could they protect civilians in this situation? There were just a dozen of them, but they had to deal with 5,000 Decepticons. It was hard enough to take care of themselves, let alone civilians. Old Man Wayne said hoarsely, "There is no difference between protecting civilians and killing Decepticons. Killing one Decepticon will save dozens of innocent people." When everyone thought about it, it made sense. "Let's go. Everyone has to come back intact. After the war is over, we'll all have dinner together." Diana shouted with a smile. "That must be last time I didn't get to grab braised bantooth rhinoceros," Mr. Wayne joked. Everyone smiled, remembering the last live broadcast. "Set off," Diana commanded. Everyone rushed to their designated areas, ready to engage. Diana's area of responsibility was divided according to the original team. After all, the members of the original team were familiar with each other. Changing teams rashly could lead to frequent mistakes due to a lack of coordination. Because the Justice League was short of one person and had insufficient combat power, they were in charge of the area where everyone was just now. The only one who could fight effectively was Victor Stone, a cyborg. Mr. Wayne could only rely on the firepower of the Batmobile, as his fighting skills were not very useful against robots. Barry Allen was just fast. But it was difficult to have him hit the robots directly. End of this chapter. Chapter 252, The Battle of Chicago Pigeons, 2. After the group dispersed, Jean Grey sensed something was amiss. "Sister Diana, where is Duke? Just now?" "Oh, that's not Duke. It's just his phantom. His real body is still in New York," Diana explained as she quickly rushed towards the southeast. She moved with incredible speed, reaching supersonic levels, though perhaps not as fast as the Flash. Jean Grey, who could fly, struggled to keep up but managed. "Phantom? Why? Isn't Duke coming?" Jean Grey was taken aback. Although she considered herself powerful, the sheer number of Decepticons in Chicago was overwhelming. Duke's presence would have made her feel more secure. She hadn't experienced the effects of Space Flash, and thus hadn't been strengthened by it, but she was still formidable. "Because there's another war in New York that's just as intense," Diana replied. "Huh?" Jean Grey was stunned. "Let's end the threat of the Decepticons in Chicago as soon as possible. Then we can head back to deal with the situation in New York," Diana urged. As she charged forward, countless Decepticons fell apart under her impact. Though not as fast as the Flash, her force was devastating. The Decepticons couldn't withstand her assaults and disintegrated upon impact. Jean Grey used her telekinetic abilities to lift and manipulate various objects, controlling the Decepticons and smashing them into the ground, reducing them to piles of broken parts. Justice League Warzone. "Victor, open the way with me," Mr. Wayne commanded. "Barry, go rescue the civilians and transfer them to a safe area." "Understood," Barry responded, transforming into a flash of lightning and disappearing from sight. His speed was incredible, and Mr. Wayne could only catch a glimpse of him. Victor, with his brain transformed into a quantum computer by the mother box, could analyze Barry Allen's trajectory, seeing only an afterimage. A blur of motion rushed out, scattering the smaller Decepticons in all directions. "Oh, it seems Barry has grown up," Mr. Wayne remarked with a slight smile. "It's our turn," Victor urged. "Yeah, it's our turn," Mr. Wayne agreed. He stepped on the accelerator, and the Batmobile shot out blue flames, rushing forward with a roar. Victor, perched on the roof, held on firmly with one hand while transforming the other into a cannon to bombard the distant Decepticons. Mr. Wayne controlled the steering wheel and fired the machine gun, quickly blowing up a Decepticon. He pressed another button, launching a howitzer that pierced through a Decepticon's chest with a boom. However, their attack drew the attention of the Decepticons, who stopped targeting civilians and turned their guns on them. Despite Mr. Wayne's exceptional driving skills, the Batmobile was hit. Made of high-strength materials and capable of flight, it was nearly flipped over by the shells. Thanks to Mr. Wayne's quick reflexes and skillful maneuvering, they avoided disaster. Victor Stone, however, wasn't as lucky. He was blasted off the Batmobile, rolling through the air before crashing into a wall. "This kind of physical pain is really driving me crazy," Victor muttered as he got up, shaking his head. "Concentrate and scatter," Mr. Wayne's hoarse voice crackled over the comms. "I'm fine here," Victor replied with a smile. "It's good that you're okay. Don't forget your braised bantooth rhinoceros." "That is," Mr. Wayne began, but his voice was cut off by the sound of another explosion. "In order to stew the rhinoceros, I have to survive," Mr. Wayne said with a smile as he drove the Batmobile towards another Decepticon. The quest for the steamed bantooth rhinoceros had become his obsession. Since the last Duke live broadcast gift was sent out, the prices of the 4 prehistoric ingredients had skyrocketed. Many people chose to sell them on Amazon rather than eat them. However, most people still consumed them themselves, considering their rarity and the fact that they were at least a few million years old. This might be the only chance in their life, time to taste such a delicacy. Despite this, there were still many consignments, both real and fake. This had spawned a new industry of counterfeit prehistoric ingredients. Many were fooled by these fakes, including Mr. Wayne. After much effort, he managed to track down the contact information of several live broadcast room IDs, only to find that everyone had already consumed their stock. His obsession grew stronger. The Batmobile performed a fancy drift and ghostly slipped under a Decepticon. The Decepticon was momentarily confused, wondering why it wasn't being attacked. Suddenly, 2 claw hooks were thrown from the tail of the Batmobile, hooking onto the Decepticon's legs. The Batmobile then dragged the Decepticon across the ground until it fell apart. This technique left the surrounding Decepticons bewildered. Victor seized the opportunity, flying up to deliver a finishing blow. He blasted the Decepticon's head at close range, then used his strength to step heavily on its shoulder, causing a loud boom. He then ripped the Decepticon's head off. Victor possessed superpower, and his body, transformed by the Mother Box, allowed him to easily lift objects weighing several tons. This ability increased with his repeated mechanical transformations, making dismantling a Decepticon a simple task. A huge black behemoth blocked Mr. Wayne's car. It was Hatchet, a member of the terrorist force, who was killed by Bumblebee and Dino in the original story. Hatchet resembled a giant robotic tiger. His companion, Shovel, also a member of the terrorist force, was killed by Ironhide and looked like a predator. Oh, Mr. Wayne was stunned. Damn it! This big black guy didn't look like an easy opponent. Mr. Wayne quickly fired machine guns and howitzers, but Hatchet dodged them. Hatchet started to run in big strides, looking like he was going to overturn the Batmobile. Mr. Wayne thought, is this the end? At the critical moment, a golden light crossed the Batmobile and pierced Hatchet's head. Hatchet staggered, collapsed, and rolled away. Ha ha ha! How can such a lively event be without me? A strong man with a thick beard and hair descended from the sky, pulled out the golden light, and greeted with a smile. You are old. Enjoy yourself at home. Here is young human life. Mermaid! Victor exclaimed in surprise. Mr. Wayne smirked. Arthur, you bastard! End of this chapter. Chapter 253, The Battle of Chicago Pigeons, 3. Arthur, you bastard! Old Man Wayne sneered, curling his lips. Why are you here? I'm in Gary. I heard about the Chicago Pigeon incident and saw your name in the report. It took me a while to get here, Arthur replied, smiling as he waved his trident, sending a dead Decepticon flying. What's the situation now? Why are these robots going crazy? Arthur wielded the trident of King Atlanta. Although it had been bent by Duke's fist, it was still formidable against these mechanical foes. Suddenly, a loud explosion echoed, and Arthur was blown away by a bombardment. That still fucking hurts, he groaned. Ha! Cyborg laughed, taking the opportunity to blow up a Decepticon. Seeing Arthur knocked into the air, he teased, Mermaid, it seems you're getting old. You're old, not me, Arthur retorted, cursing under his breath. I warn you, call me Mermaid again, and I'll throw you into the sea to short-circuit. Rubbing his shoulders, Arthur leaped towards the Decepticons once more. Our Justice League hasn't been in the public eye for a while. Let's give them a big show. Ha ha! Cyborg rolled his eyes and muttered, You're the one short-circuiting. I'm not an ordinary battery. Have you ever seen Iron Man short-circuit? Speaking of which, where is Iron Man? At that moment, Tony Stark was still engaged in a dogfight with 3 Decepticon planes. Do you love me too much? He quipped as he dodged a cannonball. This love is too intense. If you were a robot girl, I might consider it. Iron Turtles, follow closely, Tony commanded, accelerating sharply and spraying blue and white flames. He shot out 100 meters in an instant, then made a sharp 90-degree turn. The Decepticons, more agile than the Chitauri, quickly adapted and continued their pursuit. Where did he go? The Decepticons were confused, having lost their target. Can't find your lover? Tony's taunting voice came from above. As the Decepticons prepared to retaliate, they were met with a barrage of artillery fire. 2 exploded on the spot, and the third, attempting to flee, had its wings chopped off by Tony and crashed to the ground, only to be finished off by another of Tony's cannon blasts. Now, we can end our grievances. Tony smiled, turning and rushing towards the main building of the center. Duke's orders to the Chicago Pigeon team were clear. The natural enemy must not be allowed to activate the device and teleport Cybertron. The consequences of such an event were unpredictable and potentially catastrophic. Duke wasn't an astronomer, but he knew that the sudden appearance of a massive celestial body like Cybertron could have devastating gravitational effects on Earth. Even worse, if the device failed and Cybertron was backlashed, it could create a massive black hole. The resulting cosmic vortex could spell the end for Earth. Duke had instructed everyone to target the red energy column. If they couldn't destroy it immediately, They were to take out the 4 auxiliary energy columns around it, even if it was just one. This would prevent the natural enemy from activating the device and summoning Cybertron. Duke was puzzled by the arrogance or overconfidence of the enemy. They had installed the device at the highest point, making it an obvious target. They weren't like the fallen King Kong, who had the ability to control things. Above the main building, Utiandi had already noticed the invading enemy, but he didn't. In his eyes, the other party consisted of only a dozen or so people. How could they possibly stand against more than 5,000 Decepticons? 1 mouthful of spit per person. No, 1 mouthful of engine oil per person would be enough to drown them. Utiandi's arrogance and conceit were leading him to a doomed end. Earth is not Cybertron, nor is it the territory of the descendants of Yuanshi Tianzun. Suddenly, a black figure rushed over, about to draw his sword when boom, boom, a laser cannon swept through. The roof of the main building was blown apart, and not just the red energy column, but 4 blue energy columns were also destroyed. Utiandi was disheveled by the bombardment, his sword piercing into the wall and sliding down to the ground. No! Seeing his hard work ruined, Utiandi angrily wanted to kill someone. Pointing his sword at Tony with one hand and holding a large shield with the other, he demanded, "Who are you?" "Me, Iron Man. Get down and die!" Utiandi was furious. He expected a melee fight, but they didn't give him a chance, covering him with long-range artillery fire. Before he could react, the energy columns were blown away. Those who didn't exert any strength were just knocked down. Tony Stark was a little confused. Is this guy out of his mind? No. He has no brains. He has brains? Cybertron's robot brain? Shouldn't that be considered a brain? Just as he was about to laugh, a strange voice came in over the public channel. "I'm Optimus Prime. We've arrived in the southeast and are cleaning up the Decepticons here. Has anyone seen the royal enemy?" "He's in the main building of the center," another voice responded. It was Storm's voice. "Ah, here I am, Tony Stark. I just blasted down the energy column, and the crisis has been resolved." In Tony's view, the crisis with the Chicago Pigeons was over. As long as the energy pillar was destroyed and Cybertron couldn't be teleported, the Earth would be safe. The problem with the Chicago Pigeons would be resolved in a short time. In a maximum of half a day, the crisis would definitely be over. He never doubted the victory of this war. "Also, Optimus Prime, is your teacher? Is he brainless? Does he have brains?" "Oh, I'm not saying you Cybertronians don't have brains. It's just, he actually sent me down to die. Isn't there something wrong with his brain?" Optimus Prime and the other Autobots were speechless. "I can suppress him with firepower from the air and turn him into a sieve. Why do I have to go down and confront him head-on? Idiot. I've sent you the coordinates. He is your teacher. You can clean up the mess yourself. I'm off to find Megatron," Tony said. Although he was scolded for being stupid, the well-mannered Optimus Prime still thanked him. "Thank you." "You're welcome. Quickly take this mindless person away." End of this chapter. Chapter 254, The Battle of Chicago Pigeon. The royal enemy was furious. When asked if he had ranged weapons, he did, but he preferred melee combat. Seeing that Iron Man wouldn't come down, he transformed into a howitzer and fired 3 shots at Tony, but Tony easily dodged them. Not only did Tony evade, but he also flew away, taunting, the royal enemy, right? Your student Optimus Prime has arrived. I'll leave you to him. Goodbye." Megatron was no longer downstairs. Sensing the unfavorable situation, he had already fled. Of course, Tony had locked onto his position early in the morning. "Optimus Prime?" The royal enemy was livid. "I brought Cybertron to Earth, and yet you still choose to side with humans?" Instead of fleeing, he stood his ground, waiting for Optimus Prime to confront him. It dawned on him that Megatron might have been right. By choosing to act, he was destined to be surrounded. He suddenly realized that any superhero around could potentially kill him. But he didn't escape like Megatron. Instead, he spat contemptuously. "Fools, do you really think you can escape?" Meanwhile, the transport plane had arrived in the southeast of Chicago, and the Autobots had already disembarked, breaking in through the main entrance. Staying on the transport plane was too risky. "Go, go, go," Colonel William yelled. "Everyone head to that building, and snipers, aim for their eyes." Optimus Prime gave orders to Bumblebee and the others. "You stay here, and deal with the Decepticons. I will handle the portal myself. Today, in the name of freedom, we will fight to the death." "Can you manage it alone?" Colonel William asked. He had received orders from above to evaluate Optimus Prime and the others. Although William himself trusted Optimus Prime and had cooperated with them for years, he still had to follow orders. To put it simply, he was a bit skeptical. After all, people who are not of my race must have different hearts. And these were robots, relying on chips which made them susceptible to control. While Optimus Prime and his team probably couldn't be controlled, other high-level robots from Cybertron might be a different story. So he took on the task. "No problem," Optimus Prime replied before soaring into the sky, heading towards the collapsed main building in the center. William took a deep breath and then commanded, "Everyone, follow him." "Since you're here, this area is yours," Diana said, quickly running towards the center without waiting for William and the others to respond. Before leaving, Duke had told her to pay attention to the transmission of the energy column. Now that Tony had destroyed the energy column, there was no need to worry anymore. She only needed to secure the red energy column and the 4 auxiliary energy columns. After the Battle of Los Angeles, recovering the energy columns had become a top priority. Currently, the energy pillars in various locations had not been installed and launched into the sky, meaning more than 80% of the energy pillars were scattered across the Earth. In the original plot, they eventually ascended into space and combined to pull Cybertron over. But as the transmission was interrupted, the cross-dimensional space backlash swallowed these energy columns. As a result, very few energy columns were scattered on Earth, and only those in Chicago were easy to recover. But now, things had changed. Duke was very concerned that the mediation after the backlash could destroy the Earth, or at the very least, cause unprecedented disasters. He couldn't afford that. So, without waiting for Cybertron to be pulled over, the energy column was destroyed. This left more than 80% of the energy pillars hidden in various places as a significant problem. If found and used by other villains, it could lead to another disaster. Slowly recovering, Diana knew that with the World Observation Eye, it wouldn't be difficult to back up the data of the energy column and then find other coordinates. "Jin, go about your business," she instructed. "Understood, Sister Diana," the PEF Onyx girl replied, turning and leaving through the air. As the 2 Supergirls disappeared, a group of special forces looked at each other in amazement. Okay. Don't just stand there. The victory of this war is assured. All right, brothers, move out. Go!" William clapped his hands and led the team towards the building. The Autobots, including Bumblebee, also began to clean up their surroundings. Utiandi was confused. He had only seen a flash of golden light before a woman took away his energy column, which made him furious. Unfortunately, he couldn't catch up at all, and Optimus Prime was here. "Utiandi! Ching! Tian Chu!" Utiandi restrained his mind, not thinking about the female thief, and prepared to confront the apprentice he once admired. "You betrayed Cybertron. You betrayed me." Optimus Prime unsheathed his orange battle axe and sword. "You told me that freedom is a natural right." He then charged towards Utiandi, slashing at his shield with the axe and stabbing his shoulder with the sword. Berserk versus defensive. The battle was on the verge. Diana had already taken 5 energy pillars, thrown them into her space bag, and then jumped to the top of the tallest building, overlooking the entire battle from a remote vantage point. Ololo, a team of Batman in the southeast, is being chased by the Decepticons. "It seems they can't escape. Go and rescue them," she commanded. "Understood." Storm nodded, rushing into the sky as her eyes turned completely white. Thunder and lightning filled the sky, darkening it. Several bolts of lightning as thick as arms struck the Decepticon spaceship chasing Batman. Even robots are controlled by energy. The lightning directly destroyed the internal power of the spaceship, causing it to tilt, spin, and crash into a building, boom, exploding. "Barry, there are civilians in distress a kilometer northwest of you." "Go and rescue them," Diana shouted again. "Okay." The Flash recognized the direction and started to run. One of the members of the terrorist force, a guy who looked like an alien, was about to kill 5 young men and women trapped in a triangular area. "Damn it! Ah!" Barry rushed out, delivering the first attack of his life with extreme speed. In the past, he had only saved people or bumped into them, but this time he used his fists. Moving at his current limit, he was like a white light, boom, piercing through the body of the alien and continuing on. The alien didn't even understand what had happened. He looked at the large hole in his chest and the red blood splatter, finally falling down powerlessly. Wow, I can attack too? Barry looked at his fist in a daze. What's the matter, Barry? Mr. Wayne asked. I killed a Decepticon. It looked like a small boss. Barry quickly replied. Okay, commemorate your first time, Victor laughed, only to be immediately blown away by the Decepticons. Barry had a black thread. What did he mean by first time? I named it Blow of Infinite Mass, Barry said. Arthur, that name is too low. End of this chapter. Chapter 255, The Battle of Chicago Pigeons, 5. The X-Men Academy's side of the campaign was the easiest. Cyclops was the best output MVP. No Decepticon could withstand his laser attack. Storm's field control and output were also formidable, not only possessing the powerful attack power of lightning, but also controlling the entire battlefield with the wind. Icemen provided the best defense, as these Decepticons didn't have the characteristics of natural devil fruits, and it still hurt to get hit. Pyro was responsible for mobile attacks. Scott, also known as Cyclops, unleashed a red death ray that swept across the entire battlefield, cutting a large number of Decepticons in half. However, Cyclops had a weakness. To hit the target, he could only attack at a fixed point, making it difficult to hit while moving. Storm descended from the sky again, striking down with blue thunder. Pyro, acting as the Human Torch from the Fantastic Four, burned the Decepticons while propelling himself with flames. Although these were alien robots, they couldn't escape things like oil and wires. Once they were burned, they became moving, burning bombs. Iceman's duty was to protect Scott. Since Scott had no defensive skills, he could die if hit directly. Iceman used his ice to create shields to resist incoming artillery fire. The reflection of the ice could also freeze the Decepticons, completely immobilizing them. This was an easier battlefield. Raven and Hank also arrived, but didn't enter the battlefield. Instead, they helped save people from the periphery. They had gradually withdrawn from the main combat force. Raven agreed. She was similar to Old Man Wayne, relying on fighting. However, Raven didn't have Wayne's battlesuit, chariot, and other Batman equipment. She was good at sneaking in, but lagged in head-on combat. Hank, although older, still had the physique of a beast, making him countless times stronger than a 30-year-old. However, his overall strength couldn't keep up with the trend. Of course, he could still handle a single robot. Boom, boom, boom. Hank nimbly climbed onto a Decepticon, gripping its neck tightly with his legs and smashing his fists and claws towards its head. With a few heavy blows, the brain of the Decepticon exploded. I'm really curious, these guys actually have brains? Hank looked at the red plasma on his claws, a little surprised. Get out of here quickly. It's dangerous here. Run out of the city. Raven was guiding a group of rescued civilians. She glared at them. Be careful. Don't worry. Hank touched his head with a smile, but then, touching the brain almost made him sick. Raven was even more speechless. Unfortunately, there was no choice for a partner. Leave quickly. Don't be greedy for money. What's the use of money when you're dead? Seeing someone still picking up money scattered on the ground, Raven stepped forward angrily and urged, Leave quickly. The man ignored her and kept picking up the money. Roar. Seeing that it didn't work, Hank roared. The man was finally frightened, hurriedly picked up a handful, and left in a hurry, muttering as he walked. You guys leave after the fight. You're honored. But our family is ruined. Ch, no money. How can we live without money? It's not that he didn't know that life was important. If the whole world retreated to a primitive society, he wouldn't pick up money because it would be useless. But not now. Cities were ruined, homes lost, bankrupt. How could he eat without money? Just saying nice things, patting your ass, and leaving after the fight. Who cares if they are hungry or not? Raven felt a pang of sadness and sighed. Hank, let's retire after this incident is over. What's wrong? Hank was stunned and looked at her. You don't care what they say? No. Raven shook her head, looking directly into Hank's eyes. I wanted to leave a long time ago, I told you. If Charles hadn't retired, I wouldn't have taken over the college. And now I feel a little tired and we can't keep up with the times. Hank, as silent for a while. Then, have you thought about who will take over? The piano is very good. Chien? Hank was a little worried. Chien was also his student. Chien is not very stable. Although Chien hadn't gone berserk or turned dark, the phoenix power within her would occasionally act up, causing significant issues for X Academy. Bobby has potential too. Forget it, Chien is still more suitable. Hank shook his head, acknowledging her strength. Have you really decided? Yes. Karazhan was in charge of the battlefield. Boom, boom, boom. Samir moved quickly, shooting magic bullets with both hands. Whether it was lightning, flame, flash, or acid erosion, it was a headache for the Decepticons. Anyone who wasn't careful would be shot through the head. Sometimes you wouldn't even know where the death shot was coming from. Samir moved swiftly, darting through the air with magical steps, making it impossible for Cybertron's spaceship to lock onto him. He was like a sniper god, frantically harvesting the lives of the Decepticons. Jennifer summoned thorny vines and entangled a group of Decepticons. Before they could react, they were directly strangled or torn into several pieces. Samir, hovering in the sky, looked down with a smile. Third sister, why don't you use your starfall? Third sister? Jennifer was the third to join, hence the nickname Third Sister. Jennifer rolled her eyes. Idiot, that needs moon energy, and it's daytime. What Jennifer inherited was moon magic, not bird magic. Her starfall was a shortened version and couldn't compare with bird magic. It also had a time limit and could only be used at night. Summon dense small meteors to bombard a certain range. Jennifer's attack skills in human form were only Moonfire, Sunfury, and Thornvine, corresponding to the basic attack skills in her form. Because it wasn't the inheritance of bird magic, it could only be used at night as Starfall. Strictly speaking, it should be called Moonlight Fall. At the same time, she could cast the intensive Moonfire technique. But it was daytime. Oh, Samir scratched his head in embarrassment. He dealt with the Decepticons around him and turned his head to look at other battlefields. Carlos had already obtained the purple double swords given by Duke and could travel through the shadows at an extremely fast speed, making him a shadow assassin. The Decepticons' mecha shell couldn't withstand the slashing of the two swords and fell apart after a few strokes. Logan and Victor were also on their respective battlefields, handling themselves very well. End of this chapter. Chapter 256, The Battle of New York, 1. Logan had been transformed with dragon bones, and his sharp claws had become dragon claws. After a hard battle, tearing apart the Decepticons was no longer a problem for him. Victor's defense had also become stronger. Covered in black dragon scales, the Decepticons' artillery fire couldn't shake him at all. He could even cast some earth-type spells, such as Ground Crack and Ground Thorn. Although Logan could also release flame magic, it was limited to his dragon claws. In this Chicago battle, Victor shone even more brightly. "Ha, Logan, I've killed 20 of them. How many have you taken down?" Victor laughed, turning his head after smashing a Decepticon into pieces. 16. Logan's voice came through the communication device. "Ha, you can't keep up, Logan. You lost," Victor laughed. Logan had always been a winner in life, and it would be a lie to say that Victor wasn't envious. Although he was also from Karazhan, he didn't dare to call Duke by his name, instead respectfully calling him boss. He was Duke's subordinate, while Logan was Duke's friend, which put him in a lower grade. Moreover, Logan had a wife who loved him. As for Victor, although his family was wealthy and he had many women around him, his feelings were empty. Now, he finally had a chance to outshine Logan. "Boring," Logan replied, continuing to search for more Decepticons. Does this mean that Victor is necessarily better than Logan? Not necessarily. It should be seen as a story of attack and defense, spear and shield. The indestructible shield meets the unstoppable spear. Who wins? Logan was transformed by the ruby crystal, turning his bone claws into the claws of a red dragon, which strengthened his power and sharpness, allowing him to release the flames of the red dragon and enhancing his vitality and healing power. Victor, on the other hand, was transformed by the black jade crystal. His nails became black dragon's claws, and his bones turned black. Although his strength was enhanced, it was far less than his enhanced defensive power, and he could cast earth magic. It's uncertain who would win if they really fought. One had enhanced strength and self-healing power, while the other had enhanced defense and added magic. It truly is a story of spear and shield. But in this war, Victor had the upper hand. The Decepticons were densely packed like ants coming out of a nest. When he released his ground thorns, he could explode a large area. But Logan could only take them on one by one. It could be said that Victor's long-range and ranged attacks made him more effective than Logan. Just as Victor was laughing, the ground rumbled and trembled violently. A huge mechanical worm crawled up from the ground. "Be careful," Jennifer yelled. "Oh, crab's special." Victor cursed as he was unlucky enough to be drilled into the sky by the worm monster. But no matter how powerful the rotation was, no matter how much the zigzag told it to rotate, it still couldn't break through Victor's black dragon scale defense. Victor, seeing this, Logan quickly dismantled the Decepticon in front of him and rushed to support him. The creature was known as Driller, Shockwave's pet, a Cybertronian underground creature. Samir also turned his head, shooting a row of flames at the mechanical worm. At this time, New York was still peaceful. But the higher-ups had already noticed that a storm was brewing beneath the calm, especially on the helicarrier of S.H.I.E.L.D., where the atmosphere was highly tense. "Dr. Banner!" After the F-22 plane landed, Captain America saw Bruce Banner not far away, the famous Hulk. "Oh, hello? I heard that you would come too." The two shook hands. Although they seemed to be in harmony, Bruce Banner's body language was very honest and distant. After all, the man in front of him was the genuine article, while he was a pirated version. When pirates see the genuine ones, they always feel guilty, afraid to look directly at them, and want to run away. Anyway, Bruce Banner had also pirated Captain America's serum. It's fine if you say you succeeded, but Bruce Banner stood awkwardly, facing the deity who had just appeared before him. "They say you can find the cube," the deity said. "Is that all you care about?" Bruce asked, feeling a bit embarrassed. "That's all that matters to me," the deity replied. Bruce nodded and glanced around. "This must feel strange to you?" "Actually, it feels oddly familiar," the deity responded. Suddenly, the Black Widow's voice came from behind them. "Gentlemen, you'd better go inside quickly. It will be hard to breathe here soon." As they moved inside, the helicarrier took off, leaving Bruce and the deity in awe. Hover energy check completed, supply stability confirmed, power increased to 8%, output power adjusted to maximum, performance at upper limit, all engines running normally, shield emergency protocol 193.6 activated, achieve predetermined altitude, light reflector activated. "Thank you for coming, Doctor," Nick Fury said, nodding to Captain America before approaching Dr. Banner. "Thank you for the invitation." "So, how long am I going to stay here?" Banner asked, feeling uneasy. Despite the hardships he faced in Karazhan and Skull Island, those were the happiest days of his recent years. The 1,000-meter altitude of the helicarrier made him nervous. He wouldn't have come if Duke hadn't asked him to. "You can leave once we retrieve the cosmic cube," Fury assured him. Banner nodded. "What's the progress on your side?" He knew Nick Fury wouldn't arrest him, but he was uncomfortable dealing with officials and resistant to detention. "We're scanning every camera on the planet that's connected to a wireless network," Phil Coulson began. Meanwhile, in Loki's hiding place, he watched the chaos in Los Angeles unfold. Unlike others, he had ways to understand the events inside. When he saw Tony Stark, as Iron Man, collapse the energy column that had been painstakingly set up, he couldn't help but smash the iPad in his hand in frustration. Megatron had withheld the truth about the Decepticon plan from him. Although Loki still didn't fully understand what the Decepticons were planning, he knew he had been deceived. Those energy pillars were not just to open a portal and bring the Decepticons from the moon to Earth. There was more to it. Loki didn't know the true purpose of the energy pillars, but he knew that if the plan succeeded, it could threaten Earth. He wanted to control the Earth, not destroy it. He was furious that Megatron had lied to him and that the Cybertronian robots had been disrupted so quickly. Smashing his iPad, he realized it was only a matter of time before the Decepticons were defeated. "What did you see, Agent Barton?" Loki asked. "My next target," Barton replied. End of this chapter. Chapter 257, The Battle of New York, Part 2. In Karazhan, Duke was using the World Observation Eye to monitor the significant events unfolding on Earth, particularly focusing on Loki's activities. The observing eye had tracked Loki's movements, and it seemed his plan was unfolding similarly to before. The material for the meteorite Proton Shenma was still sourced from Germany, but instead of being captured there, Loki was exposed in New York. Is he trying to capture Mera to blackmail me? Duke mused. It was unfortunate for Loki that he hadn't anticipated Mera's increased strength. Additionally, the goddess of luck, Domino, was with Mera, making Loki's attempts futile. Loki's misfortune continued as he either missed his attacks, slipped, or was hit by falling objects. Ultimately, Captain America arrived and captured him. Howard stood cautiously beside Duke, not daring to speak. On one hand, Howard was amazed by the power of the World Observation Eye, which seemed like a bug, monitoring and recording everything. On the other hand, he was worried that Duke might lose his temper, especially since Loki had targeted Mera. It seems his plan has changed, Duke murmured. Howard finally breathed a sigh of relief, thankful that Duke didn't seem angry. You? Aren't you mad? He asked. Why would I be mad? Duke replied. That's Mera. Loki wanted to capture Mera to threaten you. Won't you be angry? Isn't she fine? Duke responded calmly. But what if something had happened? Howard pressed. If something had happened, I would have chopped off his hand. Duke said murderously. Howard looked helpless. He had thought Duke wasn't angry, but clearly he was mistaken. Duke still had some respect for Odin, not out of fear, but out of consideration for the dying god. Otherwise, he would have killed Loki himself. Duke pondered whether Loki's change in strategy would affect the helicarrier crash. Loki was genuinely captured this time, not pretending. Duke wasn't sure if Loki had a backup plan. It seemed likely, as Hawkeye hadn't accompanied Loki to capture Mera, indicating he was assigned to another task. Will the helicarrier crash again? Duke wondered. There weren't many heroes in New York at the moment. The X-Men Academy's untrained members were present, but Loki wouldn't be foolish enough to attack them. The Academy was half secluded, and its main combat teams were in Chicago, only fighting when necessary. If Loki wanted to target the X-Men Academy, he would wait until the wormhole opened and the Chitauri army arrived. Therefore, S.H.I.E.L.D. was the most direct target. There's a good show to watch, Duke said. Thor had already arrived, landing directly on the helicarrier. Another battle ensued, which Captain America eventually stopped. I request to see Loki, Thor demanded. I refuse, the hawkish country bumpkin replied. You've been staring at him for half an hour. Are you fascinated by him? Dr. Banner complained. Loki is stalling for time, Captain America analyzed. He was arrested on purpose. What do you mean? Mera asked, glaring at Captain America fiercely. Mera, Domino, and Peggy Carter were all on the mothership. Sorry, that's not what I meant. Steve quickly raised his hands in apology. He was familiar with Mera, having stayed in the House of Wishes for a while. He knew Mera wasn't truly angry, but he was still a bit afraid of her, not because of her strength or Duke, but because she was considered a mother figure, making the seniority gap awkward. I think he has a second plan. Loki went alone, but Agent Barton didn't show up. This is not normal, from my judgment. Captain America trailed off, deep in thought. Agent Patton had other tasks, and Loki, he was stalling for time. With that said, Steve looked up at Thor. Thor, what exactly is he trying to do? He has an army of Chitauri, Thor replied. An army? Everyone was taken aback for a moment. An army of aliens? They don't come from Asgard or any known world. Loki wants to lead them to Ada, CK Earth. They will help Loki take over the planet. And I think Loki will give them the universal Rubik's Cube, Thor explained. Black Widow frowned. It seems that Loki is probably cooperating with Megatron. Megatron? Thor frowned, unfamiliar with the events in Chicago. There are about 5,000 other Decepticons who have already captured Chicago, Black Widow said, her disdain for Thor and hatred for Loki evident. If it weren't for the Rubik's Cube, she would have wanted to kill Loki herself. She took out her iPad, opened a previous online video, and handed it to Thor. The footage showed the early stages of the Decepticons' occupation of Chicago. With the Decepticons completely cutting off communication, they no longer had access to what was happening inside. With just a glance, Thor's expression became troubled, and his breathing grew heavy. Is there any evidence to prove this? What do you mean? Black Widow snapped. No, I mean if this is true, I will definitely not let him go. Asgard's law will judge him, Thor quickly explained. He was no longer as arrogant as he had been when he first landed on Earth. After being humbled by Duke and experiencing the events of Thor 1, he had finally matured. He was no longer the boastful god who thought he was the best. From outer space? Steve frowned. Then he must be building a portal. That's probably why he took Eric Selvig. Selvig? Thor asked. He's an astrophysicist, Dr. Banner explained. He's my friend, Thor added. He's under mind control and one of our agents, Black Widow said, clearly frustrated. She wished she could take out her anger on someone, but not having a target made her feel even worse. What exactly is Loki trying to do? I sense a conspiracy, Thor said. Wait, Thor frowned, looking around. Since Chicago is already like that, why are you all sitting here doing nothing? Someone has already rushed over. Karazhan, X-Men Academy, Justice League, and the Autobots, Mara said with her arms folded. Chicago's victory is only a matter of time. Yes, what we need to focus on now is this situation, Steve said. Wait, I got it! Dr. Banner put on his glasses again, looked at the energy column in the main building in the middle of the iPad video, and suddenly realized, I thought the arrangement of these energy columns was very strange. They're meant to open a portal. I understand now, these energy columns are also prepared to open a wormhole. What? Everyone was dumbfounded again. Another wormhole? Could Earth handle it? End of this chapter. Chapter 258, The Battle of New York 3. Are you sure? Captain America asked. Yes, this should be a device to open a space wormhole. Dr. Banner nodded. Then, Peggy Carter began. There has been no news of the wormhole opening so far, so it should have been blocked. Everyone nodded in agreement. Although they couldn't see inside the Chicago Pigeon building, the exterior could still be photographed. Gary, who was nearby, would have captured photos or videos if the wormhole had opened. But there was nothing on the internet indicating that the energy column must have been destroyed by the heroes inside. Okay, we don't need to worry about the Chicago Pigeon, Steve said, turning to glance at Peggy. He believed the superheroes there were enough to handle the situation. The question now is Loki. Whatever he plans, we can't let him lead an army here. I don't think we should focus on Loki. His mind is unpredictable. He's practically a lunatic, Dr. Banner said. Be careful with your words. Although Loki is unreasonable, he is still an Asgardian, Thor interjected, and my brother. Even if there's no evidence he allied with Megatron, he killed 89 people in 2 days, the Black Widow pointed out, staring at Thor. Thor looked embarrassed. Not my brother. I think it might have something to do with the mechanics. Iridium. What do they want iridium for? Banner asked. Everyone fell silent. Without Tony Stark, they were at a loss. It seems we need to find someone who knows. What about Tony Stark? He should know, Steve suggested. S.H.I.E.L.D. has his contact information, Black Widow said, taking out her phone and dialing Tony's number. At that moment, Tony was in a fierce battle with Megatron. Hey, Iron Crab, is this all you've got? Tony taunted as he flew around, suppressing Megatron's firepower. His bone armor was impressive. Though a bit awkward, it felt like wearing a full-body human skin. Fool, Megatron roared, firing 2 cannonballs. Tony dodged them easily. This is no fun. It's really no fun beating you like this. Tony decided to confront Megatron head-on. Just then, his communication device rang. Sir, a call from Agent Natasha Romanov of S.H.I.E.L.D. Do you want to connect? Jarvis asked. Tony hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Put her through. Long time no see, Agent Romanov. Bang. Oh, crabs! Tony exclaimed as he was punched by Megatron. On the helicarrier, the Black Widow was confused. Why did he curse at her? What are you doing? She asked. The rest of the team was also puzzled. I'm in Chicago. What do you think I'm doing? Because of your call, I got punched by a damn iron crab. If you have something to say, make it quick. I'm in the middle of a fight, Tony shouted, having just been hammered by Megatron. Despite his strong armor, it still hurt. He was slammed into a wall, feeling a bit depressed. The iron crab is... Never mind. I have a question for you. What is the function of iridium? Black Widow asked. Iridium? Why are you asking about iridium now? Are you free, Agent Romanoff? Tony replied, blocking Megatron's big foot and then slashing at him with a laser knife. Megatron roared in pain, grabbed Tony, and threw him. Tony realized he couldn't continue the fight here and needed to escape. Let me make this quick. New York is also facing an invasion by an alien army. Loki, the Norse god of mischief, is involved, Black Widow explained, ignoring Thor's grim expression. Agent Barton and Dr. Selvig were mind-controlled, and they're about to open a portal, a wormhole. They stole the element iridium. Tony was stunned. New York was also facing an invasion? What was happening? What's wrong with this world? There's another portal in New York? Damn it! Megatron is going to escape. I'll contact you later. Tony Stark abruptly ended the communication, leaving everyone in the room exchanging puzzled glances. About 10 minutes later, the communication device rang again. Iridium is a stabilizer that can make the portal more stable. Additionally, according to the needs of the evil god, Iridium can also widen the portal and keep it open for a longer duration. As for the rest of the materials, Barton should be able to find them easily. Now, he only needs one more component, a high-energy density power source to activate the cube, Tony Stark explained. When did you become a thermonuclear astrophysicist? Maria Hill asked, her tone laced with skepticism. She had little patience for playboys who seemed to take things lightly. Just now. I consulted my dad, Tony Stark replied without a hint of embarrassment. Ah, yes, old Mr. Stark, Dr. Banner said, clapping his hands as if he had just remembered something important. He realized he should have consulted Howard Stark earlier, but he didn't have his contact information. The rest of the group looked stunned. Howard Stark was supposed to be dead, after all. Not everyone knew that Howard was in Karazhan. Maria Hill, in particular, found Tony's nonchalance irritating. Old Mr. Stark is a soul residing in Karazhan, the country bumpkin interjected, revealing his knowledge about Howard's current state, which he had kept to himself until now. A soul? Everyone was taken aback. Thor seemed to recall something. Is it him? When I visited Karazhan a few years ago, I thought I saw a soul. I assumed I was mistaken. No, you weren't mistaken. I just didn't have time to investigate further before Duke sent me back, Thor clarified. Does Loki need a specific energy source? Steve Rogers wondered aloud. He needs to heat the cube to 1.2 million degrees Kelvin to break through the Coulomb barrier. If Selvig finds a way to stabilize the quantum channel effect, he can use any reactor on the planet to perform heavy ion fusion, Dr. Banner explained. Is it Dr. Banner? Tony Stark asked. Yeah. I like you, especially when you're a big green raging guy, Tony Stark quipped. Thank you, Dr. Banner replied, somewhat awkwardly. Black Widow suddenly had a realization. Wait, did you kill Megatron? She remembered Tony's last words and connected the dots. Of course, it took a bit of effort, but his head is mine now. A very interesting subject for research, Tony Stark said. All right, I need to inform the others about New York. With that, he ended the call. The cryptic nature of the conversation left everyone feeling uneasy, but they trusted their country and believed they wouldn't be so foolish as to ignore the warning. End of this chapter. Chapter 259, The Battle of New York, 4. Diana stood atop the tallest building in Los Angeles, surveying the entire battlefield. Tony turned his head and rushed over, holding Megatron's massive head in his hand. We've got news from S.H.I.E.L.D. There's another invasion in New York, a guy named Loki, Tony said urgently. Don't worry, Duke is ready, Diana replied calmly. Oh crap, so, Tony suddenly yelled. What happened? Diana asked, concerned. Loki wants to open a portal, so he needs the tallest building. Damn, Tony exclaimed. That's right, Loki wasn't an idiot. Placing the energy column on the tallest building made it an easy target for concentrated fire, but such a commanding height was necessary to open the portal. One reason was to show off to the world, and the other was to facilitate the transmission. Who owned the tallest buildings in New York? Stark Industries Tower, Osborn Tower, and Wayne Tower, though the latter was less significant. So, Loki would definitely choose either his mansion or Osborn's. Tony hoped Loki would target Osborn Mansion to severely injure his old opponent, but there was a 50% chance. Diana also realized this. Do you want to go back? She asked. The situation here is almost handled, and I killed Megatron, Tony replied. All right then, I'll notify Duke to open the portal for you, Diana said. Thanks. Put this head away from me. This is my trophy. Grandma Diana, Tony said, flying up to the top floor and throwing Megatron's huge head at her feet. "You go back and take it yourself," Diana replied. "Oh, look at my brain," Tony said, patting himself on the head. Diana shook her head, called Duke, and soon the portal opened. "I don't need to be here anymore. I'm going to join the battlefield over there," Tony said, jumping into the portal with Megatron's head in his hands. The door closed behind him. New York was still relatively calm, with no visible danger or signs of a fight yet. Tony flew all the way to the Stark Industrial Building, first putting Megatron's head in the vault, and then called Pepper up. "Go. I'll take you to Karazhan first," Tony said, not allowing Pepper to question him. He hugged her and flew out, nearly suffocating her. After finally landing on the ground, Pepper was so angry that she punched and hammered him. "Why are you crazy?" she yelled. Tony didn't care. He was still wearing armor. New York is not safe anymore. There will be another alien invasion soon. "What? Wait, what happened to Chicago?" Pepper asked, taken aback. "Chicago has no major problems. Several leaders have been killed one after another. All that remains is to deal with the Decepticons gathered in Chicago. This Cybertron invasion is basically over," Tony explained while asking for permission to enter Karazhan. Only he could enter, and Pepper was blocked. Duke gave him temporary permission. No place was safer than Karazhan, even though the X-Men Academy had many masters. "What's going on in New York? What's going on with that Loki?" Tony was furious when he saw Duke. They had fought hard in Chicago, and this guy was happily drinking coffee? "Pepper, isn't it?" Duke glanced over his shoulder. "It's me, you." "Hello," Pepper said, feeling a little difficult to breathe. She had known Duke for a long time, but this was the first time she saw him. Especially when she saw the world-observing eye, her heart almost stopped in shock. The observation eye recorded what was happening every minute and every second on Earth. You could even see some actresses having intimate moments at home. "Ahem, let's have some fun," Duke said, feeling a little embarrassed to be watched by Pepper. He quickly closed his observation eyes. After all, this was his future granddaughter-in-law, even though he didn't like Pepper very much, because she didn't look. Tony took a bite, but it seemed like he was experiencing beauty recognition fatigue. After all, since she matured, she had been surrounded by blonde, long-legged, and assertive models. Perhaps he was simply tired of beauty. Tony was a bit confused, but now was not the time to dwell on such matters. "What's going on with Loki?" he asked. "This is called the World Observation Eye. It can monitor and record major events happening on Earth in real time. I intervene in situations that endanger the planet, but I don't get involved in everything. Some things are better left alone. Loki and Megatron have joined forces, and if nothing changes, he should launch an attack soon," Duke explained, waving his hand to reveal the scene of Loki imprisoned inside the helicarrier. "Already locked up?" Tony frowned. "It's as simple as that? The invasion is inevitable." Duke shook his head. "Is it just watching like this? You should be able to prevent the invasion from happening," Tony pressed. He was disciplined and responsible, displeased with Duke's passive approach. "Why should I stop it?" Duke pointed to the helicarrier and smiled, continuing to drink his coffee. "There are some things I can't tell you now. I can only share a little. If I don't intervene, I'm giving the King of the Gods Odin some face." Pepper's eyes widened. "The King of Gods? Odin?" Tony frowned. Different from mythology, Odin is Loki's father and Thor's brother. He governs the 9 realms, and Earth is part of his jurisdiction. However, due to an ancient agreement, Odin left Earth and cannot return, Duke explained. Tony was silent for a moment. "I can probably hold my own against him now. I'm not afraid of him, but I respect him. Odin has prevented several catastrophes in human history. Therefore, Loki can't die. He must be dealt with by Odin himself." Tony turned and strode out. "I don't care how deep Loki's connections are. If he dares to cause trouble on Earth, I'll make him pay a heavy price. I hope you don't stop me." "I have no intention of stopping you," Duke replied. "Tony?" Pepper called after him, chasing him out. After they left, Duke reopened his world observation eye. "Tsk. These Kardashian sisters really know how to play. Wow, that's quite the sight." End of this chapter. "Mean Tony?" Steve asked, his brow furrowing in concern. Tony sighed, shaking off the dust from his armor. "Loki's plan is already in motion. The Chitauri invasion is imminent, and we need to be prepared. We can't afford to waste time on endless discussions. Thor stepped forward, his expression serious. Loki is my brother, and I know his tricks. We must act swiftly to stop him. Agreed, Steve said, nodding. We need to come up with a strategy to counter the invasion and secure the cosmic cube. Nick Fury, who had been silently observing the exchange, finally spoke up. All right, people, listen up. We need to divide our forces. Some of us will stay here to monitor the situation and provide support, while the rest will head to New York to confront Loki and his army. Sounds like a plan, Tony said, his confidence returning. I'll head to New York and start setting up defenses. We need to coordinate with the local authorities and get the civilians to safety. I'll go with you, Steve volunteered. We need to work together to protect the city. Thor nodded. I will join you as well. Loki is my responsibility, and I will not let him bring harm to this world. Count me in, Natasha Romanoff, the Black Widow, said, stepping forward. We need all the help we can get. All right, team, Fury said, his voice firm. Let's move out. We have a city to save. As the Avengers prepared to leave, Tony turned to Peggy Carter. Aunt Carter, stay safe. We'll handle this. Peggy smiled, her eyes filled with pride. I know you will, Tony. Just be careful out there. With that, the Avengers boarded the Quinjet and took off, heading towards New York. The city was already in chaos, with the Chitauri forces descending from the sky and wreaking havoc. Buildings were on fire, and people were running in every direction, trying to escape the destruction. As they approached the city, Tony activated his suit's communication system. Jarvis, give me a status update. Sir, the Chitauri forces are concentrated in the downtown area. Loki is believed to be at the Stark Tower, using the cosmic cube to open the portal. Understood, Tony replied. Let's get to work. The Quinjet landed in the middle of the chaos, and the Avengers quickly disembarked. Steve took charge, directing the team to their positions. Thor, you and Tony take the skies. Natasha and I will handle the ground forces. We need to keep the Chitauri away from the civilians and push them back. Got it, Tony said, taking off into the air, with Thor following closely behind. As the battle raged on, the Avengers fought valiantly, each using their unique skills and abilities to protect the city. Tony's repulsor blasts and Thor's lightning strikes took down wave after wave of Chitauri soldiers, while Steve's shield and Natasha's agility kept the ground forces at bay. Despite their efforts, the Chitauri continued to pour through the portal, overwhelming the city's defenses. It was clear that they needed to close the portal to stop the invasion. Tony, we need to shut down the portal, Steve called out over the comms. Can you get to the Stark Tower and disable the device? I'm on it, Tony replied, flying towards the tower at top speed. As he approached the tower, he saw Loki standing on the balcony, the cosmic cube glowing in his hand. Loki, this ends now, Tony shouted, firing a repulsor blast at the god of mischief. Loki deflected the blast with a wave of his scepter, smirking. You think you can stop me, Stark? You are nothing compared to the power of the Tesseract. We'll see about that, Tony retorted, charging at Loki. The two clashed in a fierce battle, with Tony using all his suit's capabilities to counter Loki's magic. Despite the odds, Tony managed to get close enough to the device and initiated the shutdown sequence. Jarvis, override the system and close the portal, Tony commanded. Yes, sir, Jarvis responded, working quickly to disable the device. As the portal began to close, the Chitauri forces started to retreat, their connection to their home world severed. The Avengers continued to fight, pushing the remaining invaders back until the last of them were defeated. With the city finally safe, the Avengers regrouped, exhausted but victorious. Tony looked around at his teammates, a sense of pride swelling in his chest. We did it. We saved New York. Steve nodded, a small smile on his face. Good job, everyone. Let's get these people to safety and start the cleanup. As they worked together to help the city's residents, the Avengers knew that this was just the beginning. There would be more battles to come, but they were ready to face them together as a team. Peggy Carter asked, "Do you know anything?" "I don't know anything, and Duke didn't tell me," Tony replied, turning his head to scan the room. His eyes locked onto a stranger, and he strode over. "You are Thor, aren't you?" "It's me, Tin Man," Thor responded. "Duke said that because of your father Odin, he would spare Loki's life. But let me tell you, I'm not Duke, and I won't follow his way. Since Loki dares to threaten Earth, he shouldn't expect to leave unscathed, Tony said, staring at Thor. The tension in the room was palpable. Tony, Peggy Carter yelled. Don't interrupt, Tony continued, still glaring at Thor. I don't care if you consider yourself a god. Here, there are no gods. I don't care if Earth was once under Asgard's domain. Earth is Earth. When friends come, we welcome them. When enemies come, we fight. Thor's anger flared. He bowed his head and sneered. Oh, are you declaring war on Asgard? Yes, Tony replied. Why, with your iron suit? Thor sneered, hammering his fist into his palm. You think you can challenge me, the god of thunder? That's right, with my iron suit, Tony affirmed. Sensing the escalating tension, Captain America quickly stepped in to separate them. Children, is it really time to quarrel? Black Widow said, patting her forehead in frustration. Hawkeye had been captured, and she was in no mood for this. The priority is to find the Tesseract and locate Barton, she added. To find Barton, we don't need to search for the Tesseract, Tony interjected. Everyone looked puzzled. What do you mean? They asked. If Loki wants to open a portal, he needs to go to the highest and most open place, like pigeons in Chicago avoiding predators. We just need to lock onto the tallest buildings in New York, and we can find him. Tony explained. The tallest buildings? Isn't that? Black Widow began, looking at Tony in surprise. That's right. The Stark Tower, the Oscorp building, the Wayne Enterprises building, and the Kane family skyscraper. These are the tallest buildings in New York. The view and location are ideal for Loki's plan. We just need to monitor these 4 buildings to find the Tesseract, Tony said. Is that why you came back? Maria Hill asked. Of course, I don't want my building destroyed by that bastard, Tony replied, turning to glare at Thor again. Although Thor was still angry, he understood Tony's concern. It wasn't a personal attack. Tony had a 25% chance of his home being targeted. Anyone would be upset if their home was under threat. End of this chapter.